traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex, and then episode number 175. Now I've got a plan. Bug on Rocket. I'm Keith.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys? I think we're all a bit loopy.
That was far funnier the second time around.
Bug on Rocket.
Maybe because we knew it was coming. Like
you
that
weren't
punchline in the
something
movie.
wittier.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you have your expectations set here, and then they come down to here. But then you've already heard it, so now they can go back up again.
When you've hit rock bottom, the only way is up.
I see what you did there with the rocks.
I bunged it.
So we're recording late this week.
Yeah.
My bad.
And in a different sitting situation, so if we're more relaxed, that's
if we
why.
sound different or we fall asleep halfway through.
Why are we out here?
Well, I suggested a few weeks ago so we aren't so close to Sarah, but this was... I'm tired. And I didn't want to sit in that uncomfortable chair for another 2 hours.
Gotcha.
I said sitting here is going to make him fall asleep.
I wanted to go outside, but...
We don't have a table for outside.
a little cooler out there.
I guess we could take that table outside.
Keep the neighbors up.
Set up on the on the patio.
That'd be fairly awesome.
Actually, that wouldn't be bad. Run an extension cord out the door.
Let me get an extension cord and we can try that one week.
We'd be like the...
You don't know an extension cord that long?
Not like that. I don't have an industrial extension cord.
I do.
Bring it.
I'm sure Glenn does somewhere in his garage, behind a bureau and some light bulbs in a
We
gutter.
probably use it for the garage sale.
I've got 4 or 5 of those big old industrial straight extension cords
See, not having a
hanging
house, I don't
nicely
need
on
one
a
yet.
hook in the garage.
We'd be like the oldest permanent floating podcast in New York.
We'll just take it to a park next time.
When you buy a house, you find you need extension cords.
Oh, yeah.
When you first buy a house, you find that you lose extension cords. So that's why I have 5 of them. I finally got hooks.
How else do you think I plugged in everything in my house?
Well, everything in your basement.
Whoa, yeah, stuff is there.
It's all plugged into that cord, which is then plugged into the neighbor's house.
What you guys do this week?
Shaun, how are finals? Did you do anything?
They're not very final because they keep coming.
You still have more?
Yeah, for 4 classes, it shouldn't be, but everybody's apparently assigned a final project on top of the final exam, and it's like, really? We couldn't do one or the other, but I'm about halfway with my list. I have my dry erase board out, and there's this huge list of all this stuff has to be done at the dates, and I'm about halfway.
Do you cross out or do you erase?
I cross out.
Yeah.
That way I feel accomplished.
Right.
Like,
That's what I would do,
Yeah.
just to make it look like it did something.
did something today. And sometimes they have check marks, which means it's in progress, but it's not quite to the point where I can cross it off yet. And sometimes
It's check marked because if I had to turn it in now, I probably could, but there's more to be done.
Sometimes you just need that little extra oomph of inspiration to go, hey, look, I got a check mark now. Feel like I'm moving. I totally... We had to do just a little 2-3 page paper for an archaeological short story, basically. She gave us a couple of settings, and you had to create a fiction to go along with all the facts. And I totally turned it into a Doctor Who story.
I saw your tweet about that.
Yeah, I hovered around it for a while, and I finally buckled down and started writing the thing, and the next thing I knew, the TARDIS showed up, and I was like, damn it. So there may be some new fan fiction on the website soon. But, so there's that, and we got our short film done for art class, which is nice to have that. People don't realize, this was a 9-minute film. Nothing major. 9 minutes. I mean, I guess it's major for us, but, 9 minutes. We shot over spring break. It's just now done. It's taken...
It takes a long time to edit.
2 months for 9 minutes. It's like, man. And this isn't really what I would even think of as,
Good.
Well, that too.
Sorry.
That
was mean.
It's not what I would
The
call
look on
a...
his face.
It's not what I would call a technologically challenge. Well, it was challenging. It's not what I would call a difficult one. It was just a short film, that we did and put together. I mean, it had green screen stuff in it.
Sometimes when you're doing your best, though, you put a lot of work into it.
Thanks.
So.
When it does make its appearance, please don't take any note of Glenn's comments.
Yeah.
But so that's done and done with, and the professor got it, so that was a good thing because we were a little concerned that maybe it was going to be
12/21.
Yeah, and it wasn't. So that was nice. And then what else did I do? I worked a lot. I did take Saturday off and went up to Krypton Comics in Omaha for Free Comic Book Day.
How was it? I didn't get to go.
It was fun. You should come.
I didn't go.
What?
I had too much stuff to do.
What?
Yep.
It didn't occur to me. I just assumed you went.
Nope.
Oh.
You could have
That's
come.
okay. He's going to come to Planet Comic.
You got his autograph for him, though, right?
No, I didn't even.
What?
Money was a little tight, too.
Oh.
I
understand that. That's why I didn't go to Omaha. Well, I didn't go to Omaha
But
because
don't worry, Glenn. He'll come to Planet Comic Con next year.
Is he coming?
Adam did.
I guess that's true.
Jewel did.
Jewel did too?
Laws of nature.
Yeah.
Sean went up to Omaha to get his autograph. Therefore, he'll be in Kansas City.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true.
That's the way it
The
works.
common denominator.
Yeah.
We got Sylvester. Okay, I've seen Sylvester.
That's right. We went to Galley and we turned around and got Sylvester.
So
I'm going to quit going to cons so that more stuff people will come to.
that's totally our fault. Or wait, I guess I still have to go.
You have to go. Right. Maybe we'll get Colin next year.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But no, it was fun. Krypton puts on a very, very, very good big event, and
I thought you went to Omaha.
I did.
Krypton
Comics. Oh. I like The Rock better.
Sorry, I'm exhausted. My wit and humor is at a lower caliber than it even is on a normal basis.
It's dull.
It's very dull.
Like a spoon.
Ultra dull.
The he and the autograph that we're talking about, in case we didn't say it at some point in time previously, or you haven't seen my Facebook photos, is Ron Glass, who played Preacher Man in
Venus
Firefly.
Flytrap.
No, he was not Venus Flytrap. That's Tim Reed.
Oh, yeah.
That we did talk about.
No,
we didn't
we
talk
talked about that
that.
at shows because I made that reference
Yes,
too.
and that's
And
what-
I think
where I
I
got
made
it.
that reference a few weeks ago and realized that I was wrong.
see, I'm not the only one.
He played...
Barney Miller.
Yeah, he was on Barney Miller.
Well, he wasn't Barney Miller. He was on Barney Miller.
He also played, believe it or not,
Agents of
I didn't know
S.H.I.E.L.D.
this until years ago. Yeah, he was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
More recent.
He played on an African-American version of The Odd Couple that ran for just
Really?
probably not even a season. And he was Felix Unger.
Really?
Yeah. We caught that on BET one year. I had no idea that it even existed. And it was him and the guy that played, and I can't remember his name, that played Lamont Sanford. And he was
Really?
Oscar. And it was, I've seen a lot of episodes of Odd Couple. I won't say that I've seen them all, but the particular ones that I saw of this duo didn't seem to be like direct adaptations of the Jack Klugman and
Tony Randall.
versions. So
When do you think this was? You don't remember the name of it?
it's called The Odd Couple.
It's called
That's simply what it was called, The Odd Couple, and it starred
The
those
New
two
Odd
guys.
Couple,
Okay,
according to IMDb.
okay, The New Odd Couple.
I actually directly followed Barney Miller in his career.
Shocked the
82,
heck out of
82.
me. I had no idea if it was, does it say how many episodes that they did?
18.
Which means they aired 4.
I saw it. Well, I saw a chunk of them,
2 if it was
and
on
that's
Fox.
what made me presume it was probably a season. But
Huh.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Interesting.
He is the nicest guy. I mean, we say that about everybody we meet, that they're always so nice. He's just nice and friendly and sweet and nice and good-natured. So he was really, really cool.
How was the crowd compared to Adam?
Not as long,
Really?
at least initially. And I don't know if that was star power versus Adams had a few more recent things that he's been in.
and he had just come off of Chuck too.
Yeah, he just come off Chuck, and he's in Independence Day, and
Wait, he was in Independence Day.
Oh, yeah.
Who was he in?
he's the Air Force officer that's at Area 51.
okay.
Rescues the president when he's being, or when Oaken's being, when Data's being choked by the thing with the tentacles, and the president goes, "Are these bulletproof?" "No, sir." That's him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Long time since seen Independence Day. They're making a 2 and a 3.
Still no Will Smith, from what I've heard. That'll go along great with Mrs. Doubtfire, too.
Yeah. Do we want to open that can of worms now, or just to let it lie?
And Goonies, too.
Yeah,
That one I'm actually a little okay with.
Depends on how they do it.
Yeah. But Mrs. Doubtfire 2?
Yeah.
No. Doesn't need it.
Not needed.
Anyway, so we did that, and then Mel and I actually, in between all of my studying and paperwork, I took advantage of every down moment that I had, and we knocked out a couple movies.
Ooh.
We watched About Time.
Oh, what'd you think?
Oh, it's wonderful! You need to see it. I didn't like it as much as I liked...
Love Actually?
Yeah, the other one. Love Actually.
Love Actually.
I almost...
It was right there. And
Love Actually.
Love Actually.
Is about the astronaut.
I really want to see that movie now.
It was a little dull until he got to the
That was
moon.
the sequel to Apollo 13.
And then it got real exciting. No, I didn't like it as well as I liked Love Actually, but it was really, 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 really good. And I loved the time travel aspects and the fact that they gave us just enough to go, okay, but not enough to really explain it. I was okay with that.
And then tackled some issues that you were like, well, what would happen if they did this?
Yeah.
And then they did that.
But the genius part of this movie is that, first of all, it's a romantic comedy. Secondly, it's a time travel movie. So automatically there's 2 sets of tropes. And they start to move toward this direction, and you're going, oh, don't do that.
You're going to time traveler's wife it.
You can't possibly be that stupid that you're going to go and do that. And then he doesn't. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then the next scenario comes up, and you're like, oh, dude, really? And then he doesn't. It's a very smart, it's well done. It was just really good. And of course, Bill Nye's in it, so that 1,000 points for Bill Nye because he's just cool.
It's a great directorial end for Richard Curtis.
Is he retiring?
From directing, not from writing. Just from directing. Which he's only done like 4 now.
Isn't the guy that plays the main guy
Domhnall Gleeson.
Yeah, isn't he going to be in
he's going to be in Star Wars.
Which Weasley is he? He's Fred or George, right?
Fred. No. Not Fred.
Neither
Bill.
time.
Bill.
Oh, he's Bill.
He's the oldest.
Okay.
The Weasley brothers their last name's Phelps. I can't remember their first names. But
They will be Fred and George from this day forward.
Yeah.
Bill Weasley.
Sorry, boys. Fred and George. So Bill Weasley's in it. But, yeah, just a wonderful movie. Just really, really, really good. You need to watch it. We loved it. And then we watched...
If you liked it stands to breeze, then I'll hate it.
Yeah, but... you guys both liked Love Actually.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And you got me to watch it, and I
like,
loved it. So.
What's his name? You just said his name.
Richard Curtis.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Richard Curtis.
What's he done?
All the way back to his Black Adder
He wrote
days.
Vincent and the Doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
That's
why we like that one so much.
I think we reported on the fact that he was doing About Time long ago when they just said he's going to make a time travel movie.
And this is the same Richard
Curtis.
Thank you. Richard Curtis that did Black Adder series with Rowan Atkins, right?
I believe so.
That would explain why Rowan Atkinson was in Love Actually and why Bill Nye's in everything, including Vincent the Doctor.
Yeah.
He said, I've got somebody to play the museum curator. You just need to call him. I've been calling him for years.
Oh, and he also did Bean.
Yeah, that's
He
right.
was the co-creator of Bean.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Bean or Mr. Bean?
I think both.
Well,
that's
the
different.
Americanized version, movie version, I'm sure he had some hand in, but it was...
Let me see.
That was...
He cashed the check.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Bean
No, he wrote
goes
Bean.
on holiday.
He wrote Bean.
And he wrote
I know
Mr.
he did,
Bean.
but what I'm saying is...
No, he wrote Bean.
He wrote
the movie.
Bean, the movie.
Yes.
And wrote Mr. Bean, the series.
Yes. What I'm saying is he co-created Mr. Bean, and he just wrote Bean for an American audience is what he did.
Well, he still wrote episodes of Mr. Bean.
Well, but once you've created it, you don't have to go back and recreate it. You just write a new episode borrowing all the best bits of what you previously did.
Well, that's what
he
they did for Bean.
That's what he did for Bean.
Yeah.
He wrote it.
Yeah.
Actually, this is only his third movie he's directed. Love Actually was the first, and Pirate Radio was the second.
Did he write Pirate Radio?
I believe so.
Oh.
Now I need to see Pirate Radio.
Which was good. I enjoyed that one.
Did you like it?
I enjoyed it.
Although I didn't do
It was very different, but I liked it. It's got the pantheon of actors, too.
Good word use.
Thank you.
I like his work.
So then we watched 47 Ronin.
Oh, how was that?
Is it Tom Cruise in that?
That's the other one.
Oh.
No, Keanu Reeves is in this one.
Keanu Reeves is
Oh,
in
yeah,
this one. Yeah, that one. Tom Cruise was in Last Samurai.
So disconnected on movies anymore.
It was okay. Don't get me wrong, I liked it. I wanted to like it more than I did. And there are parts of it that definitely had some problems. Mel really, really, really liked it. But we didn't. We've heard a bunch of people kind of poo-poo it, and it's not very good. I didn't think it was horrible. It just probably wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But it certainly wasn't the steaming pile that other people claimed that it was.
Yeah.
And then we watched X-Men to get caught up.
Oh, yeah.
And then we watched X2. So I'm a third of the way there. You guys are up to what on Flex with Friends?
Tomorrow night we'll do X-Men Origins of Wolverine.
I'm not going to be there for that. There was a moment I thought, well, maybe no.
Take the day off.
Yeah, no.
Watch Last Stand tomorrow.
Well, I'd still have to watch Last Stand during the day.
That's what I'm saying. Take the day off tomorrow.
No.
Watch
Yeah,
Last
you don't
Stand.
necessarily need two Origins of prequel.
And I've decided after what.
Do you own Origin?
I've never seen it.
I know, but do you?
I know
own
I don't own it.
Okay, I think we went over this last time.
Yeah.
We did.
And I've decided that X2 is the Empire Strikes Back of that trilogy,
Sure.
except for the ending. Can we talk about it?
Why not?
It's what,
I
10
don't know
years old
if
now?
I'll fly the spoiler flag or not, but
No, gosh, no.
okay. So
If it's not just now in theaters or just now on DVD, spoil away.
okay, spoilers. I don't. It's not that I don't like the ending with Jean sacrificing herself to save everybody because it's necessary. She's got to die in order for the whole Phoenix thing to take off.
It's how it happens.
It's how it happens because it's dumb.
Unnecessary.
She gets off the ship and they're complaining about there's no power. The engine has died, and we need. Cyclops even says we need an external power source. She gets off the ship and goes, whoomp, and picks the thing up, and all the switches flip on, and the power comes back. It's like, how? That's not one of her mutant powers to go whoomp and turn an engine on. You know, I mean, she could telekinetic it, but
You saw Last Stand, though, right?
yeah. But there's no juice. That was the problem. That's why he said we need an external power source.
Yeah, but one
Now-
could argue that the Phoenix abilities
Yeah.
give the power.
That's what I would.
So she's holding the ship up with this hand,
that.
and then she's blocking this immense wall of water with her other hand. And you've got a plane full of mutants, and nobody could help out.
yeah, I don't have a problem with the fact that she
Nightcrawler
restored
was
power to the
tried to.
plane. My problem is that nobody got out to help her.
Nobody got out to help her.
Well, at least Nightcrawler tried,
just
and
all-
Jean blocked it.
They
I-
all
to
just
do it.
watch her die.
Yeah, I've seen enough
Yeah.
cartoon X-Men and one or two graphic novels to know that they don't do that. You could have teamed up. You could have had Storm could have electrified the plane with a bolt of lightning to jumpstart the engine, and that would have helped out. Iceman could have been out there trying to freeze the lake to prevent her from having to hold all of it back. That would have helped. You've got a whole ship full of mutants that could have helped, and nobody did anything except for give this
Well,
Tyrion
Rogue could have.
goodbye.
Oh wait, useless.
Yeah, really, as she is. But yeah, it's just, it's like, okay. I don't get it. But heck, for that matter, Cyclops could have been optic blasting the lake and turning it into steam so she didn't have to hold it back. I don't know. He just,
At least attempt.
At
least
Even if you fail, even if
at
you
least
fail.
make an attempt. Don't just everybody stand there and watch her. Where's Jean? Uh-oh. Well, there's nothing we can do.
Put your sad faces on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so, there's that. But other than that, it's the pinnacle of movie making. Everything about that film is awesome. That was my week.
I can't believe you didn't go to Omaha. I thought you guys would be here talking about your Omaha trip.
How's your sister?
She's good.
That's why you didn't go to Omaha.
That's why I didn't go to Omaha. Before that, we watched Jobs. It was actually pretty good.
The Ashton Kutcher.
The Ashton Kutcher. I thought Ashton Kutcher did a good job. And I've never been a big hater of his. I don't like his comedy, but and the one drama I've seen, I thought he was really good in. So, and that was
The Butterfly Effect.
Yeah.
Just checking.
It was interesting. I didn't know a lot of that. I felt like they could have dug deeper into who he was as a person than they did in the movie. It was kind of the Cliff Notes, and then early Cliff Notes. So it wasn't as spanning of his career as it could have been. But it was interesting.
I saw they're making a third biopic now of Steve Jobs.
Is that the David Fincher one?
Might be.
It's supposedly set around the three big announcements: iPod, iPad, and iPhone.
See, and that's pretty much.
But it's also supposed to be in real time, which is like
that's not.
Wait, what?
Yeah, like the movie.
If
it's a 90-minute movie, it's going to take up 90 minutes of.
Well, those didn't all launch.
I know. I don't get it.
Well, and that's something, and that's if they're
I
doing
recall
that
day.
fine.
In a matter of 90 minutes, they announced all three of those things.
And Apple took over the world.
They started the movie with the iPod announcement, but they don't go back there at the end, and it's all before that. It ends shortly after he gets control of the company again. So I mean, it kind of, and then he conquers the world, kind of. So it was really interesting on the forming of
Then he died.
Apple.
Sure, he did.
Well, he did eventually.
What are you going to do with the world after you have it?
Eventually. Then you die.
And then we did the tweet along, the X-Men Last Stand.
Yeah, we watched that on Wednesday.
How'd that go?
It was fine. There was a lot of bashing from Chrissy, but otherwise...
And me and Brittany trying to defend it. It wasn't as good as I remember it. I'll give it that.
And I was just filling in the comic crossover information. I think it's pretty much all I was relegated to.
Because I was under the impression so many of those characters were made up, and that's not the case.
So what this translates is to that Glenn would lob one out there to see who would fight over it.
No, actually, it was more of a...
No, it was more of...
It was more of a fact-checking from... Keith
I
would
was
put
like-
something out there, and then I'd say, well, actually... And then he was like, really? Well, what was it? And then so it got into a conversation with Keith, and him asking me, well, was this a character? Yep.
Which one?
So wait, that
bastardizes their powers.
that horrible blowfish character was actually somebody?
The horrible blowfish
Yeah, the
character?
one.
Miles?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It was different. Was that different powers too?
Different powers, yeah.
So they used a name but gave different powers. So they're essentially new characters that they gave the same name to.
Psylocke, she's relatively...
Psylocke was somewhere in there.
I caught something next too that I'd never seen before. When Mystique goes into Stryker's lab and she's pulling up the files on his computer and getting all the information, it's got a list of mutants, known mutants, and one of them is Remy. What's his name? Gambit. One of them, Gambit's name is on the screen. I went, hey, that's where he is. So apparently he is in the movie.
His name.
What was his name?
He's also in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I'll get there. I haven't seen that one yet. No.
I like that portrayal more than I think I would like.
Well, I thought the
upcoming
portrayal.
one
I thought
possible.
the portrayal was fine. It was the destroying the whole comic book chronology. And,
Well, it destroyed the entire movie chronology too.
yeah, well, that and
That's what I have a bigger problem
actually,
with.
I don't even have that much of a problem. We'll talk about this next week. But I'm an apologist for all of the X-Men films. I'm even with all of the inconsistencies and continuity errors and comic book crossover crap falls, I am fine with them. I just sit and I enjoy them. But the one thing that I cannot get past is the horrible, horrible, horrible job they do with Deadpool and X-Men Wolverine. Origins of Wolverine.
Well, and Deadpool was
Horrible.
Well, he started out fine. I was okay with him off the top.
It was very in character for Deadpool.
That's what I've
until
heard.
the
That
end.
And yeah, it's the
I've heard
ending
that whole
and then
movie
it
is
just
actually
goes
pretty good up until about the
completely
3/4
off the
mark, and then it just
You know what the best thing about that movie was?
the ending.
The video game that they
Yes,
released
the video game was
alongside
awesome.
it. The video game was incredible.
Well, part of it also was they didn't hold back and got an M rating,
Yeah. It was
so it was gory.
well,
and that's realistic for Wolverine.
they expounded on the story too. They went places that I didn't expect they would go.
Yeah. Then I also did a tweet along with Brittany to Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah,
since I hadn't
sorry,
seen that
I
one.
didn't make it. I was
Oh, I forgot how much I enjoyed that movie.
really.
Yeah, I liked it.
I think it was a fine movie. I watched it and thought it was good. It didn't meet expectations for me, but I thought it was a fine reboot. I didn't have any problems with it.
I think there were a lot more subtleties I picked up this time than the first.
I'll have to go back and rewatch it. I remember liking it. I don't remember being blown out of the theater by it. But, having said that, we popped Spider-Man 1 in the monitors at the store. So, of course, we're not really watching it because we're working and there's no audio, so we're not really paying attention to it anyway. But every time I would look up at it, I marveled at the fact that, wow, this really didn't age well. Now, Spider-Man 2, I think, probably is better. But, I mean, for a while, Spider-Man...
Spider-Man 2 is...
Yeah.
To me, is the best Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever.
I agree.
It's
Spider-Man
so
2 is in my top 5 all time.
Yeah.
Ever.
See, I remember walking away from both Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 not being blown away by him either. And I
so good.
found Amazing Spider-Man better, I thought, than the other one.
Yeah, I didn't like it as much as I liked 2, but I think I liked
It's
it
been a
better
while
than
since
1.
I've seen 2, though. And 2, I
Two
remember
was
liking 2
so
a
good.
lot.
So good.
But then I didn't go to Omaha because my sister came in town, and I did a lot of running around getting ready for that on Saturday before going to pick her up.
You have a sister?
I have a sister.
Did you go see Spider-Man 2?
Yes.
Oh, you're getting there. Sorry.
I'm getting there. So I went and picked up my sister, and we came back and had dinner, and then we went and saw Spider-Man 2 Saturday night.
How was it?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
It's getting really bad reviews.
It's getting really
I
bad
don't understand
reviews.
why it's getting bad reviews.
That's what Robert and somebody
I
else
would put it on
said.
par with Spider-Man 2.
Which you
the-
just got done saying that you didn't
Which-
like as much as we did.
Well,
Spider-Man 2's in trouble.
I think it's a good step in the... Well, no, I like Spider-Man 2 the best out of that trilogy. But I think I liked Amazing Spider-Man better than Spider-Man 2. But that's how I can compare it, is... I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is even better than Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, I see what he's saying.
follow you now.
That's where I'm
I
going
got you.
with it.
I was lost too, but I see what you're going with.
The original
You're
Spider-Man
equating
trilogy
the
is here to me.
situation, not necessarily the movie parallel.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
because there are very little movie parallels to Spider-Man 2. And I think that's one of the reasons I liked it so much. Was it and Amazing Spider-Man, is it aside even with the origin, they changed stuff enough that I didn't feel like I was rewatching a movie with different actors.
Yeah.
And
Well, it
this
helps
one
that
especially.
Amazing Spider-Man farmed a lot of the origins. While it changed some of the things that the first Spider-Man movie did right, it went with more of the core origin
and
of
it
the
fixed
character.
some things that Spider-Man didn't do right. Like the mechanical web shooters.
Right.
And Amazing Spider-Man does something I wished... Or Amazing Spider-Man 2 does something I wish Amazing Spider-Man would have done, which was include some drama
Which was do a
with
better costume.
which the costume is a little bit better. But
lot better
some
from what I've
drama with the mechanical web shooters.
See, I think that's the problem I have with the mechanical. Everybody was so up in arms over there's no web shooter.
but
it
it's such-
makes
it's-
sense. You're bitten by a radioactive biological spider. You're going to develop egg sacs that shoot out. Okay, I'm fine with that. I've got no problem with that at all. Because if you have mechanical web shooters, at some point in time in your film, they're going to break down, and there's just going to be the tense moment where he falls off a building.
That's what
I don't care. He's Spider-Man. He's going to get out of this.
But they did that situation, but better. It wasn't oh no, I'm going to fall off the building. They did it in a way that made sense, and it's like, oh, yeah, okay.
No, wait.
And
I will
liked
reserve judgment.
how they handled the drama of that.
Now I think I know something from that. I'm just presuming.
I don't think you do.
Okay.
He's not able to save somebody.
It hit a lot of great notes. I think the weakest part of it might be the villains.
Too many of them?
No.
No, I heard
but
I heard Rhino's only in it for like 8 minutes tops.
yeah,
and
yeah.
Green Goblin isn't even in that much. And
he's not.
I've heard they've cut stuff that was in the trailer.
Well,
that wasn't in the movie.
yeah, they did.
I hate when they do that.
I don't think these villains could have held their own movie anyways.
No, they're all going to be in the Sinister Six.
But there wasn't enough story there for them to be a standalone villain for Spider-Man.
Did you know Venom's a good guy in the comics now?
That doesn't surprise me.
That's a standard comic
The
trope.
only reason I know that is because I picked
popular.
up that Guardians of the Galaxy for Free Comic Book Day.
Oh.
Tony's sending him off to help the Guardians. And it's Flash Thompson.
Oh, nice. So I really enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we actually saw it in 3D.
I've heard actually the Cinema Blend gave it a pretty good score.
I didn't go and look up Cinema Blend. The only reason we went to 3D was it was better timing. We got done with dinner. We missed the 8 o'clock showing.
Sometimes
the next
that
one was
happens.
3D, and okay. We'll
They said Cinema Blend gave it pretty high marks across the board, with the exception of the coming out of the screen.
You're talking about
effect.
the 3D aspects.
Yeah, the 3D aspects of it. And they said you would think it's a Spider-Man movie that it would be ripe for let's go poke you in the eye, and they didn't.
I like that they don't do that in 3D when they don't do that in 3D, because I find that annoying. We're just going to constantly throw stuff at the screen. That's why we have 3D. We're going to throw stuff.
Well, if it's
because I'm going to throw stuff back at you.
That's when 3D feels gimmicky to me.
It's still a gimmick.
It's still a gimmick, yes, but this felt more like the depth, like it did with Hobbit.
like Avatar and
Tron.
Yeah, and Tron. And there was some stuff flying through, but it really gave more depth, and I really can't compare it until I see it in 2D. I don't think seeing it in 2D will suffer at all. But I enjoyed it in 3D.
Okay.
And
My buddy at work saw it, and he said it was fine up until about, he said there's a climax, and then there's an ending, and then there's this huge letdown because it just keeps going, and then there's a 20-minute thing, and then there's another villain, and it's just like, the movie ended. Where are you going with all this? So, but I'll reserve judgment.
I could see some of that, but I also had a feeling of something that was coming, and they hadn't gotten there yet. So
it's like a Doctor Who episode.
Should we talk?
You've got to escape from this prison at least once more before we can wrap things up.
Have you guys seen the stuff about the post-credit scene?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Do you want
I
to
don't know. Sure.
Because it doesn't matter. It's a clip from X-Men
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past.
Really?
Yeah.
Lame.
Really lame.
I'm going to call that now.
Well, and I heard it was
lame.
a trailer, but it's actually a clip.
Yeah, it's just a clip. No setup, hardly anything. It's see a couple characters, they fight a little bit, and then it's over.
Is it Mystique breaking?
Yeah.
Now,
It's online
that's
now.
actually really surprising, though, from the standpoint that Spider-Man is Sony and X-Men is Fox.
It was a deal cut with the studios. I think they realized...
I looked it up, and what happened was Mark Webb has a contract to do another another Fox film.
That's right.
Because he did 50 Days of Summer, and he hasn't fulfilled his 2-movie contract with them. Well, he backed out of doing another movie with them to do Amazing Spider-Man 2. And so part of that agreement is allowing them to promote it within the film or post-credits. And then...
It's okay. It's not going to hurt me.
Well, I didn't know if it was going to fall and hit your computer.
Oh.
And then also extend his movie contract to 3 movies.
Oh, for Spider-Man.
For Fox. So now he has to do 2 more movies. In
Oh,
addition.
gosh.
Oh, let me think about this. I'm required to come make another film.
Here's the thing.
All right.
It won't be a Spider-Man movie, though, so...
Here's the thing.
Sounds like he's not going to do
If
Sinister
you're
6
going
anyway, so.
to do these movies, play nice with the other studios,
Well, yeah.
and realize that it's only a double benefit for everybody. That's why I think that
That's why Sony really needs to play
should
nice with Marvel.
allow Spider-Man in the Avengers. Should he be a big main character? No. Should he be a nice non-cameo scene? Yes. It's only going to benefit your series.
And I remember seeing set pictures.
Same thing
and it
with
could have
Wolverine.
I remember seeing set pictures, and it could have been from deleted stuff that was with Mary Jane that ended up not making it in the film, or it could have been somebody's personal motorcycle that had a Stark emblem on it. Wasn't in the movie anymore.
Cool.
And that would make sense with Rhino, etc., etc.
You guys are playing in the same sandbox. You need to
Get along. Yeah.
Get along.
Well, I didn't realize that under the terms of the agreement that Fox owns the word mutant.
Yeah.
That's part
why
of their
Quicksilver
X-Men.
and Red Witch can't be
So,
mutants.
any of those characters that do wind up appearing in the Marvel
There's-
Universe true,
there's only
they're
two.
changing the backstory altogether because they can't use
There's
it.
only 2 crossover characters right now, and that's the Red Witch. I almost did.
Quicksilver
Scarlet
and
Witch
Scarlet
and
Witch,
Quicksilver.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
And they're like mega humans or something like that. I can't remember what
Inhumans, aren't they?
Inhumans. That's what Marvel's decided to call
Which
them.
really adds more depth to the actual universe of Marvel than, from what I understand, of Inhumans.
Yeah.
Because Inhumans are, a long time ago, aliens came to Earth and bred with humans, and that's how we got Inhumans. It's kind of another take on the whole why they mutate.
huh.
So they're almost half alien, or partially
Boy,
alien.
we got way off tangent.
So who built the pyramids?
Aliens. Sunday we went to Hutchinson and went to the
That's right.
salt mines, or the underground salt mine,
Did you find any
Should
Doctor
have
Who?
made you go last because you're going to make mine look lame. My weekend
which was
salt.
really neat. I did not expect the underground salt mine to be as cool as it was. They even brought back a chunk of salt.
Ooh.
You know, I practically spent a good chunk of my childhood in Hutchinson, Kansas, because that's where my parents are from and my grandparents lived there.
Never went.
I have still never been to the salt mine.
It was really neat, and it's bizarre being in a place where if you turn off the lights, there is absolute darkness. And they did an example of that. And yeah, you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Sensory deprivation.
Yeah. It was really, really cool. I have some pictures I've posted.
Did you buy the salt or did they give it to you?
One of the rides you can do, like there's a train ride you take, and there's a tram ride, and you get a piece of rock on the tram ride. You pay for the tram ride, but
We're tempted to sit there and lick on that thing. I know you're not
well,
supposed to.
they've explained how this is what they put on the road. This is not what you put on your table.
Yeah. It still tastes the same.
No, not quite. I was on the way back
A
home.
little bit of dirt.
And Megan poured some of the smaller pieces in my hand, and she took them back, and there was little pieces, and so I jokingly went like this, and a piece flew into my mouth. Yeah, that's like having salt water in your mouth.
One's out there at in the ice and the snow. The 1 cup for the driveway, 1 cup for me, 1 cup for the driveway.
That's salt rock, though. That's different.
Did you know they had? I don't know what actual film they have, because I think what they have on display and what they're actually storing are 2 separate sections. The Mr. Freeze suit and the Batman suit from that movie,
Yeah, I have
complete
heard
with
that.
bat nipples.
Really?
I have
Mhm.
heard that.
I didn't know that.
And Dean Kane's Superman suit. And the Metropolis model from Superman Returns.
So Warner Brothers obviously uses the salt mine.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Well, there's copies of Gone with the Wind. I think Wizard
I
of
thought
Oz.
there was Gone with costumes, but I didn't. They didn't have any. down
There's
there.
actually film canisters.
There's actually film canisters,
from a
yeah.
lot of Warner Brothers films.
They had a
because
display of how they have them set up.
They
but I'm
get
pretty sure
the
they're empty.
studios rent their own vaults. There's like I got full vaults.
Well, that's where they found whatever the last one was. Was it Clockwork Orange or 2001? One of the Stanley Kubricks. They found extra footage in
Dorothy
one
2
of these
is down
things
there?
that they didn't know was down there. Dorothy 2?
From Twister.
Oh.
I think that they sent up the sequel to Wizard of Oz.
The sequel to Wizard of Oz, Dorothy 2.
Dorothy 2.
And Mr. Smith's suit from Matrix Revolutions.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and then we went to the Cosmosphere, which was
The Cosmosphere.
Cosmosphere.
The Cosmophia.
Cosmosphere.
We're all having issues with talking tonight.
And in between ate a Fazoli, so ha.
Okay, wait. So, of the 3 of us in the room, raise your hand if you had Fazoli's this weekend.
Oh yeah.
I hate you guys. You know what? Next weekend, I'm going to Kansas City and Wichita, and I'm eating Fazoli's both times.
You go, boy.
Okay,
Have fun
I'm
with
not
that.
really, but
Did you try the cheesecake?
The Nutella?
Yeah.
No.
You
But
know-
Megan and Dad and Carol had never been to Fazoli's before. And
New people.
They were amazed by the breadsticks.
Yeah, I was
that's
too.
that's all that's really amazing about it. The
The
boss
rest
is fine.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good.
It's cheap but good.
4-minute lasagna.
It's good. It's,
Bam.
But it's not phenomenal.
That's
It's just
4-minute lasagna.
the breadsticks. Oh,
And then you brought me breadsticks.
Above and
You had me at
beyond.
hello. They have for a special limited time only, they have this chocolate and peanut butter cheesecake that's made with Nutella.
Well, it's like a chocolate cheesecake, and then it's got Nutella spread on top.
Yeah, well, it's something inside of it too, I think. But
wasn't
I don't know. I'm not a big chocolate fan, but we were like, okay. Ooh, it was really good.
I don't like
I would imagine very
cheesecakes.
rich.
Yeah,
Did it taste like cheesecake? Or did it taste more like chocolate?
chocolate cheesecake.
Well, some chocolate cheesecake has that cheesecake flavor.
Yeah,
Others
but
taste more like
Nutella
chocolate
doesn't
pie.
exactly taste like chocolate. It
No,
does.
It doesn't taste like peanut butter either. It's this weird.
Well, it's hazelnut.
It's hazelnut and cocoa is what Nutella is basically. Which cocoa
So I can
is,
make my own?
cocoa.
Essentially,
Cocoa is essentially what's in
Hazelnut
chocolate, but it's that less milk chocolatey taste and more robust cocoa taste and hazelnut.
Maybe it was because it was coming off of the lasagna and the breadsticks, but it was really good.
I was tempted, but we didn't.
You should try it next time.
Oh, let's see.
They're going to have it for a while, so when we all go up to Omaha for British Fest,
there we go.
We'll grab a
Right
slice.
there. And the Cosmosphere was pretty cool. I'd been before, but I don't remember it.
Well, they've really revamped it.
It seemed very familiar, but I don't know if that was just because it wasn't that long ago that I went to the Air and Space Museum.
Did they get an SR-71 down there yet?
I don't think so.
They were talking about it at one point in time. I don't know if they ever did. They were talking about getting one of the space shuttles, too, but I don't think
Or
we
they
did.
didn't get the space shuttles.
Oh, well, they're supposed to
I don't
get a
know
piece
if
of
the big
space shuttles.
there's a big plane hanging in a lobby, and I can't tell if that's a real one or a mock one.
I think it's fake.
I think so too, because the shuttle.
Well, because if you look, it's kind of the back half of it kind of not melds into the wall, but is part of that backdrop.
Well, yeah, and then there's another one that's
Maybe that's
in
the one
the
I'm
exhibit.
thinking of.
This was like a black. The SR-71's the big black stealth plane. That's what it looked like, but I don't know if it was an actual one or not. There wasn't a big to do about it. If it was real.
Because of the Air and Space, the Strategic Air and Space Museum outside Omaha, they've got a real one, and there is a big to do about it. Because
I would think there would be a bigger to do about it.
So maybe it's a fakie. I thought they were getting one though. Of course, the last time I was down there, they were still in that tiny little building that was attached to the high school, or the middle school, whatever it was. So they probably redesigned it a lot since.
What?
I was there. Yeah,
Well,
it used to be this big.
School. Oh, are you talking about like the science building?
Yeah.
Because
It's
there's a Cosmosphere and then there's a science building right next to it.
Yeah, but that wasn't part. I mean, that was part of a middle school years ago, but not before it was. Before it was
the high
Cosmosphere.
school is still across the street.
The high school is,
Yeah,
but
back in the day,
it
was
grew up
there.
Practically grew up there. It's
But
never
you never
been
went to the
part,
salt mine.
It's never been part of the middle school. It utilized
One
that.
of
The
the
science
eight wonders
part
of
used to
Kansas.
be one of the middle school buildings, but it was never part of the middle school. The science building's always been classroom stuff for the Cosmosphere. In fact, that's where Space Camp was when I grew up.
Okay,
It
right.
was never
So
it was during
so
while it's
maybe
been
they were
open.
running
part of the
something.
school.
And it's still there. That building's still there, but they've added on and built on to the
it was a
actual
small
Cosmosphere.
building the last time I was there. It was like this big.
They've built a huge foyer entryway. And
that's all there then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
see, I
all
haven't
there.
seen any of that.
Yeah.
And they got that launch pad area.
No.
Where there's like the engines.
That's been there for a while.
How's
That you just
okay.
New to me.
That single. No, it's always been there. That was their crown jewel when they opened. It sits outside in front near the sign.
Right.
And it's just one of those big engines off of Apollo.
One of the Apollos. I don't remember which one.
8, I think it is.
New to me.
Yeah, but it was there. You probably just didn't see it because it's been there since it opened. Because I was there when it opened. I didn't go when it opened, but it was the first year it opened.
It was like this big.
Unfortunately, we didn't estimate our time properly, so we got there a little later, and then the salt line took a lot longer than we thought. So we only got to do the actual Cosmosphere
So you didn't see
exhibit. We didn't get to go to the planetarium or anything like
the
that.
Omnisphere.
Yeah.
Omnisphere.
Yeah, but
Which apparently soon Captain America Winter Soldier is going to be shown on the dome. That would be kind of neat.
I don't want to watch blockbuster movies on curved screen. I like the gimmicky ones that they do, but I don't want to see the
I've
the
never
Incredidome.
I don't think I've ever seen one on the curved screen. So Sarah and I want to go back sometime and do the.
They used to call that the Omnisphere, is what the theater was called. But
I think that's what they still
Is it
call
what
it.
it's still called?
Yeah, and go do that and the planetarium. I think is what it's called and whatnot. That was what we did this week.
Yeah, if you're going to go to a curved screen, I want to watch roller coasters or hang gliding over the Grand Canyon or something that's like,
and that's what they used to do. In fact, I saw Speed there. I saw what was the one with the train that comes at you? I was like 10 years old, scared to crap out of me. I knew it was fake, but that train was still coming.
I'm
right
surprised
at me.
that's not a new thing right now with all of the GoPro stuff being as popular as it is with these extreme sports. You'd think somebody would be editing all of that together and going, free films for everybody. Here you go.
The problem with that is you have to, for those particular projectors, you have to shoot it on a certain kind of film.
Yeah, you got to shoot in what, that 70 millimeter, 90 millimeter, whatever it is.
It's 90, I think. Yeah, it's a really big camera.
It was like this big.
Well, you walk by the room where you can see in, and you can see the spool for that thing, and it's like massive.
Because it was a true IMAX at the time.
It is.
Before IMAX started doing movie theaters.
Well, it still is an IMAX, but yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah.
before the IMAX theaters, per se.
Did you see that for $1.2 million, IMAX will come out and install a theater in your house?
Yeah.
It's THX certified to their specifications with the Dolby lasers and the whole bit. And
I think that was on IO9 or something.
They'll build the screen and the whole bit. It's like, ooh.
Now just coming up with the money.
Yeah, I told Mel, I want one.
You'd almost have to, depending on your house, you'd almost have to rip out the floor and make one giant room.
Well, I don't think they give you like an 8-story screen or
How much is it?
anything.
$1.8 billion?
One
Or
point-
million?
Well, I mean,
1.2.
to be true IMAX, you have to be
If you had
specific
$1.2
size.
million to spend on a theater, you probably
that's
just
true.
add a room onto your house.
Or already have the room on the house when you built it with that in mind.
Did you do anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Garage sale.
Yep, that's pretty much my weekend. No, we watched X-Men last week, which we covered, and then Friday morning we got up and we had our first day of our garage sale. We were only open until noon. We did relatively decent. And then Saturday was our big day. We got a bunch of people come by Saturday. And then Saturday night we did nothing. Seems like we did something, but
We took the kids out to Free Comic Book Day.
well, I did that Saturday morning when Holly and Caitlin watched the store. Oh, Caitlin got strep.
Oh,
She was home. She was sick Friday, so she stayed home Friday. She's complaining of a sore throat, but we kept looking in there. It wasn't that bad. And I think she's only ever gotten strep once. It was a long time ago. And even though Mason had just got over it, we thought she doesn't exhibit all the symptoms of strep. She just has a sore throat. But it wasn't going away. And so Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Holly took her to the doctor. And she came back, and they said, well, the initial strep test, the first one, didn't come up positive. So they said there's still a chance she probably doesn't have it, but they said, let's put her on antibiotics just in case. Luckily they did, because the culture came back Monday, and she was positive. So
That sucks.
And then yesterday, Mason's throat was feeling bad, and I knew exactly what he had, so we took him this morning, and he's on his third round of strep. So hopefully we'll get all over this, and then he's getting his tonsils out in June. But anyway, yeah, so Saturday morning we went to Vintage Stock and got some free comic books, and then we went over to another comic book store in town and got free comic books there, and then went back. Sunday, I finally decided, since it was Star Wars Day, I probably should, at long last, introduce my son to the saga. So, and another reaon I hadn't done it yet is because first of all, I've been waiting until I got it on Blu-ray, which I still don't. But I've got them on DVD, so they're fine. And my second thought is I've been mulling over how he's going to do this, whether it was going to start with 4 or whether it was going to start with 1. And I found that when it came down to it, and part of it was a conversation that he and I had when I was trying to explain to him how the 4, 5, and 6 had come out when I was his age, and 1 through 3 had come out just before Caitlin was born. Well, the last one came out shortly before Caitlin was born. And he didn't get it. And I thought, if he doesn't get it by me explaining this to him, he's going to be very lost if I start with episode 4.
yeah.
So I thought, based on the linear nature of how they are structured now, somewhat, we started with 1. Because I've always said, I'm not a hater. I don't hate Phantom Menace at all. It has its weaknesses, but I love the movie. I get a thrill every time I see it. And I get a flashback to that moment of sitting in the theater after 20 years, or nearly 20 years, and the logo comes up, and the Star Wars comes up, and the crawl comes up, and just that moment of elation that it's back, despite how poor some of the story is. And so I decided that's what I'm going to do. And I even tossed around, although I haven't done it myself, and it's kind of a clever idea. I even thought about doing the machete.
I hadn't heard of that until the Big Bang episode.
Yeah, I read it about it.
Have you heard of this?
Last I heard about it last Star Wars Day, about a year ago, but I didn't think much about it. And I came across it again several months back. Might have even been before the end of the year. And I read about it. It's called the Machete Order. And there's a really good, much better way that I'm going to explain it right up, that a guy came up with, actually a group of guys came up with, on why this is very supportive. But the idea is that you watch the movies in order of episode 4 and 5, and you don't spoil the reveal for yourself of Vader being Luke's father. So you don't that revelation. That revelation.
Okay.
No.
You still watch the whole movie.
You still watch the whole movie, but that revelation isn't spoiled for you because you haven't watched anything prior to that. Then you watch 2 and 3 as flashback stories, essentially, to fill in the gap and where they've come to that point. And then you go back and watch Return of the Jedi. And they said that what really works really well is the fact that after you've watched Vader, the culmination in him become Vader, the very next scene you see is him walking down the ramp, and it's a real powerful moment at the beginning. It's still, you still frame it in the sense that this is that's not the way it,
So where do you put 1?
Well, with theirs, you leave it off entirely for some of the orthodox, as they called themselves. However, they suggested that if you do, then you watch episode 1 as the last piece, as kind of the Hobbit of the whole thing, book-wise, not movie-wise. This is the prequel to everything and how everything was kind of set up, because it in itself does nothing within the structure.
It's the furthest away from everything.
Because you don't have to know anything about Qui-Gon Jinn. He's absolutely pointless, other than being...
Other than having a reference?
He does have a reference, but he's pointless for most of the series, with the exception of that. The other thing was that at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the revelation of Luke and Leia is paid off in episode 6, because that's where they drop that bomb, so that it pairs well together there as well. But yeah, Phantom Menace is more of a kind of just a throw off. If you put it at the very end, it's a throw off to this is how
Why do they call it the Machete Order?
I don't remember. It's
Because
been a
you're
while.
chopping the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Machete.
That's the idea, I think, behind it. I read all about it, like I said, years ago. But anyway, it's come up again recently, because in fact Martin Huey, who had suggested that on mine afterwards,
the Big Bang
brought that up.
Thursday's episode was
I saw that.
May the Fourth Be With You episode,
right?
And they talked about that a little bit, so that's how I.
So anyway, from the 6-year-old perspective, I thought, you know what, Lucas wants me to do it this way. I'm just going to go with it, and so we did that way. And then the other thing that he was quite enjoyable. Again, he's 6, so Jar Jar is not an annoyance for him.
He probably likes it.
He loves the pod race. It was fantastic. There's moments in the film where he kind of lost interest, but it's a lot of that dialogue-driven stuff, which somebody pointed out to me that episodes 1, 2, and 3 is a lot of people sitting around talking, and they're right. It really is. It didn't occur to me until I watched Phantom Menace. The other thing that it gave me kind of joy of knowing is that I'm saving the best for last, in my opinion. So when we get there, it'll hopefully be more of a treat and a little more enjoyable. So anyway,
so you plan on having them all done before 7 comes out?
Most definitely. In fact, the idea is each weekend we're going to watch one for the next 5 weeks. And hopefully, barring anything, we'll have them done probably by midsummer. So,
yeah. Has he been watching Clone Wars with you?
He did. Back when I was watching periodically. Now he was much younger because he was still home. I think it was when he was in preschool. When I was going back through the series again, he would watch occasionally with me, so he was familiar enough with some of the characters and whatnot. But it's been almost 2 years now that.
Are you just going to let him jump in whenever he wants to on that after you watch Attack of the Clones?
I think what I'll do is I'm not going to keep that linear for him. I'm just going to let him...
Well, the show itself isn't linear, apparently. So.
Well, I guess that's true, too. But I'm going to pick that up later and see if he's interested in doing that from the beginning. But that was pretty much it. That's all I did this week.
I remember something else. I've been DVRing The Real History of Science Fiction, which we talked about on the show. It's quite enjoyable.
Is it good?
I don't want to make the comparison because this isn't a good comparison, but it's what Revisited could have been, but good. Like an hour long, and the first three, I'm in the middle of the third one. The first one talks about, like, artificial life, which was really interesting. And they don't touch on absolutely everything. They touch on the high notes of the storytelling. Aliens in space was the second one. And then this third one was invasions. And there was a very nice chunk about Doctor Who. And the Daleks and Cybermen. And there were a lot of clips of black and white episodes, which were pretty neat. And it was like a whole segment of commercial break to commercial break, all Doctor Who, which was nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds very neat.
So if it's available on demand, I haven't gone to look, I would definitely recommend it. And it's narrated by Mark Gatiss. And it's got a plethora of people you would recognize.
All right, should we move on to news?
Let's. Well, the War Doctor is going to return in a novel entitled Engines of War, written by George Mann. The story will fill in some of the blanks of John Hurt's incarnation and events in the Time War leading up to the Day of the Doctor. Mann teases in a new Doctor Who magazine, new companions, calculating Time Lords, new Dalek paradigms. It's a war story at its heart, set against the backdrop of the great turmoil and chaos. It is also about the Doctor's personal journey, how he ends up where he is at the beginning of Day of the Doctor. He's been through the ringer and the engines of war, and he's not given any reprieve. Set to be released in July, end of July. No word yet on when it will be released in the U.S., but I'm sure it will be pretty close to there.
That's exciting. I think I'd like to read more about.
I don't know how I feel, because even we've always kind of said that we didn't want to know what happened during the Time War. And I'm afraid this is going to fill in too many of those gaps. While Day of the Doctor filled in some gaps.
I think you're overstating there, right? You guys
okay.
wanted to know what happened.
I've never wanted to.
I never wanted them to try to tackle it in one, half hour, hour and a half
special.
Yeah, hour and a half long special. But
well, that's what I think Day of the Doctor did so well, was touch on it, but only the ending.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it depends on how it's done. It could be very exciting. It could be the story of Martha.
I like it. I think it's a lot of great farmed material that has a lot of potential. So,
it's
farmable material.
It is a great new chapter of the show that we've never been able to touch before.
Right.
It's like setting a Star Wars book between 3 and 4. It was so nothing happened in that wilderness for so long that when it does happen, no matter how good it is, like Allegiance, it's good.
But none of that counts anymore.
Nope.
All right.
Also, Matt Smith has been cast in a major role in the new Terminator trilogy. He is set to first appear in Terminator Genesis in 2015, and his role will grow over the second and third films. He will join Emilia Clarke. Those who don't recognize the actress's name,
Sure.
That's Khaleesi in Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
She's playing Sarah Connor.
Oh.
Really?
And Zero Dark 30's Jason Clarke is going to be John Connor, who he's also going to be in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Huh. Okay.
It's got a release date of July 1st, and it's directed by Alan Taylor.
July 1st of 2015.
2015, yes. Director of Thor: The Dark World and several Game of Thrones episodes.
Cool.
So congratulations to Matt in his role. It's a brand new role in the story, from what I understand. So it's not somebody that's been in the other trilogy.
Cool.
Who's playing Sarah Connor?
Khaleesi,
Emilia Clarke.
She's
Mother of Dragons.
Daenerys Targaryen.
Daenerys. Yeah, you said Khaleesi, and which is weird because that's what I called her for the longest time because I couldn't remember her name, and now it didn't ring a bell because I had Daenerys in my head. Okay.
Daenerys.
I got you.
She is Khaleesi because that's
how we were introduced
how
to her.
yeah.
That's how most people
Well,
know
that's how I
her.
remember her, but now we don't hear
Because
Khaleesi hardly
technically
anymore.
that's a title.
Sorry, you're going to change your name? No. This guy, faceless assassin.
Well, she's been Daenerys for the last season to me, and part of that's because nobody calls her anything.
Well,
now.
that's because the tribe of Cal, or the Dothraki, tribe is so much on the back burner and barely
there's
there.
hardly any of them left, too. So.
That's why there's less.
Well,
fantasy.
but
your people's is kaput.
Yeah,
now,
what's his
now
name?
she's Daenerys Stormborn instead of Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah,
which is how she's actually introduced.
Yeah, but But now that I'm actually on the internet reading things after I watch episodes, that's how they always refer to her. And so now
it's gonna be weird to
Khaleesi
see.
is like clear to the back of my mind now.
It's gonna be kind of weird to see her in a movie with not blonde hair.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
Without
pictures
the
of her
wig.
with her regular hair though, hair color. So
it's still bizarre to me to see. I don't make the connection of that two others.
Yeah, I can see it in her eyes. She has
Yeah.
very pretty eyes. All right, next up.
Sean?
What does that mean? Well, if you are heading to Galley next year, hopefully you have tickets, and hopefully you have your hotel room, because there are no more rooms at the inn. I don't have the exact time frame, but it was very quick, it was very sudden, and then it was over. The Marriott LAX is completely sold out, as is the Renaissance, which is the companion hotel just down the block. And they are both full. So now there's plenty of other hotel options in the area. Some of them are even cheaper than what you could get at the con rate. You got to commute in. A note from Gallifrey staff is apparently people have been calling the hotel and arguing that they deserve a room. And they would like to kind of remind everybody, please don't do that. It's none of their business. They don't have any control over it. They're this many rooms available, this many rooms sold. That's it. They're full. So that is that. And having said that, if anybody has a room, I don't have one. So Mount Mel and I would like to come stay with you next year. Also, we're doing the DVD or
Long Island.
Long Island. Long Island Who has announced a new guest, a pretty major one. Khaleesi. No, I'm kidding. Who is it, Keith?
Ooh,
I know who it is, but I know you're dying to tell him, so.
Wendy Padbury.
Woo!
Oh,
Sparkle butt!
Zoe.
Apparently she doesn't make many
No, she doesn't.
U.S. conventions.
No, that's pretty cool.
That's the big guess. There's a couple other smaller ones. No offense, guys. Jason I. Ellery from Big Finish. And a couple of authors are coming back.
Oh,
Now, they have Frasier already, right?
Yes.
So you get Jamie and Zoe at the same con. That's got to be fun.
that's pretty neat. Well, good on them.
Yeah. It's shaping up to be a good con.
And as always, if anybody's in the area going to LI Who, shoot us your pictures. I mean, it's November, but...
November 7th to the 9th. And there's going to be more guests to be announced.
Oh, nobody's done with their guest announcements. Of course, Galley hasn't even announced one yet, but
That's true.
nobody's done with their guest announcements. There'll be a lot more throughout the year. So.
Oh, yeah. Apparently there's going to be more announcements in the month of May, too. This is just the first of the May announcements. What's that DVD news?
Well, just because we're talking about it this week, Web of Fear has broken all Doctor Who sales DVD records to become the top-selling title in the entire classic Who line.
In the UK.
In the UK.
So
we're
that's good.
we're reviewing number one.
That's
this
good
one.
news for Doctor Who. Unfortunately, it's
bad
also
news
bad
for us.
news for us because that proves that a vanilla release is going to sell big, which means maybe that'll
See,
kind of prod the BBC to release a special edition with some extras and stuff.
And I think most is because it's the missing episodes, though. I don't think you can just chalk it up to it's an episode. It's Doctor Who and a vanilla release. Yeah, we can be disappointed by that, but if it weren't a missing episode and a vanilla release, I don't think it would have gotten as good a sales.
Well, no, but my point is we can all it did was prove that they're doing it on the back of the fact that there was the hype around the missing episodes, and unfortunately they had the opportunity to do a really bang up job on a DVD of missing episodes, and they chose to do the vanilla release, and they're going to look at the numbers and say, oh, well, look at that. We didn't put much on here, and it's still, so anything else that comes down the pike.
I would hope BBC was smart enough to realize, okay.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, at this point, everything that's available is available. There's nothing to be released on DVD at this point that exists.
That exists in its entirety.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, there are ones that are still slated that they're working on, but they're ones that have been out before on VHS or are animating or missing. But Zygons was the last one that had never had a DVD appearance. So they've all been out in some way, shape, or form that have been available, except for ones that, like I said, are still coming. I think what Glenn's going for is that it's not necessarily the decision that, well, we could just get away with vanilla releases from this point out. It's the idea that we can give them a vanilla release first.
Yeah.
And then double dip in the well and come back with a special edition later.
Right.
Which I think they will only do with the missing episodes. I don't think we'll see any other vanilla releases. I mean, granted, they're all out. But
well, yeah,
still.
Again, that's what you're going to get at this point.
Even any ones that they animate, I think they're going to include other bonus features.
Well, certainly they will because they, as you said, the hype won't be behind them, so they'll have to have something else kind of drive the sales.
Well, but again, those have also already had their, if you will, the vanilla release that didn't have the animation or didn't have the.
He's saying like maybe they aren't on DVD, but they were out on VHS. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, for that matter.
So this is essentially the VHS copy of Web of Fear.
You could look at it that way.
Look at it that way, absolutely.
I mean, just from this point on, anything. I mean, obviously, I'm still working under the assumption that they're going to find more. Anything else that comes out from this point on down the pipeline, I think we're going to get a vanilla release of it first and pump those numbers up and go, hey, look, it's the first time it's been available in 50 years. Here it is. And people will rush and buy it.
Yeah.
And then a year down the road, they'll go, here's the special edition with audio commentary from everybody who's still alive.
But you have to keep in mind, too, that they I mean, I'm sure there's a whole slate of To Entertain. There's a list somewhere at To Entertain of all the things that they're going to re-release as special editions.
Yeah.
That did have, a substantial amount of extras on it. Now they're going to put it out with more or different extras. Again, double dipping in my opinion. But if you're going to make it something
they
worth
typically go back
buying,
and remaster it, don't they?
Some of them they do, some of them they don't.
I thought that was part of the reason why some of the special editions were.
Some of the special editions
they refine the remastering process, so they
some of them have been that. Some of them are just because they were able to put new documentaries on them, or they had found new material, or they were able to get somebody else in there. Initially, when they were doing the special editions, some of them were simply the fact that there's a couple of them they cut the omnibus editions, but they made them like movie type omnibus, so that they're seamless and there's some extra stuff.
Which is the way the VHS cassettes were, I think, original. Well, a couple of them. A couple of the Warner Brothers VHS were like that.
Yes, but I'm talking about the ones like... Well, there's one specific one that they made omnibus on purpose to give it more of a... Yeah, it was Enlightenment, you're right.
Yeah. Well, in the special edition form. Yeah.
And the special edition, they've gone and cleaned special effects. Was a big driving force of special editions in the early days. Was they would come back and give you both versions of the show, one with newly enhanced special effects and one without. So.
Well, and weren't most of the initial special editions ones that Warner Brothers had released on DVD, and then To Entertain re-released as special editions with most Warner Brothers feature?
Everything's still distributed through Warner Brothers. They just don't have
a
notch on the back of the DVD.
I didn't think they did it.
I think it's... I think he's right to an extent. I don't necessarily know that was the reason behind it. I think it just happened to wind up that way. Because I think it's coincidental. Like Robots of Death, I remember that one being an early...
And it's got a Warner Brothers tag on it, too.
But now it's...
Now it's a special edition.
Yeah.
So.
I think
the Daleks, too, was another one.
Yeah.
I think that's coincidental, too, though. But, a lot of them have gone on moratorium, and I presume that those are coming back as special editions, which there's two of them that still blow my mind, but...
Which two?
Gunfighters and the Invasion.
Yeah. Gunfighters more so because that was released more recently, wasn't it?
Well, but Invasion's only since 2008, I think, or 2009.
Yeah.
So
There was another one that was even sooner than that went on moratorium. I can't remember which one, though.
something from 2010. I think you're right, because I remember that. And going down
Really
that list,
recent. I was like,
it was
what?
a
They just
Berkeley
released
one, I
this?
thought.
Yeah, I
too.
think so.
Yeah. Anyway, so regardless, I'm excited that Web of Fear has broken a record. It really kind of proved how. I mean, for years this has been, the Holy Grail, one of the Holy Grails of Doctor Who, because everybody remembers how good this story was that saw it the first time around, and everybody else wants to know what the Yeti, because we don't have the Abominable Snowmen either. So the only thing we've had in existence was just a handful, or just a couple of surviving episodes, and so
And the Five Doctors.
and so people got a chance finally to see an iconic monster in the Troughton era, which would be the Yeti. So much so that it was brought back for the 20th anniversary of the Five Doctors. They included a Yeti in there. So, yay!
Yay!
Last bit of news, Sean. Doctor Legacy.
Legacy.
Oh yes, for all of our legacy in our legacy segment this week,
Yeah.
for all of our players out there, if you're not already on the newsletter, make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Legacy has announced that they are going to start giving bonus goodies to newsletter subscribers, and that this week is a code for a new character. I don't know if it's one that's already available or if it's a new character or what the deal is, but there's a free code for a free character.
She's
So
one that's available in the game, but you get it for free. You get it automatic.
So, sign up for the newsletter, get your codes. And if you're already a member, then they thank you and go by the fan zone.
Yeah. Well, and did I see this week that Jenny, the Doctor's daughter, is going to be added to the fan area, and then as a drop in the fan area, and then eventually she'll be incorporated into the rest of the game.
That was supposed to be at
They said
least
that about
one new level.
Stormageddon, and he never came to the rest of the game.
Who?
Stormageddon.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not?
in the rest of the game.
He's
Where?
not.
What level? I never got him. He was only in the fan area, and then he hasn't, unless they
Well,
added
I
him to
don't know.
season 5.
I got him in the fan area.
I got him in
so
the fan
couldn't
area
tell
too,
you.
come to think of it.
I don't
Well,
think I haven't found him in.
He may be coming.
Maybe, or they're lying to us.
He may be later in those episodes you haven't unlocked. You're only like level 7.
Yeah.
So
I still haven't started 5.
I'm 20-some episode or 20-some levels in, but I haven't seen him yet. Of course, I wouldn't probably because I already have him. He wouldn't show up as a
Well,
droppable character
So
for me. So.
Jenny's going to be a black gem colored and a healer.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the gal that you can get the code for this time, I like her ability. She resets the board. You don't like what the gems are in there? Use her ability,
nice.
bring in a whole new board of gems. It's nice, especially if you're doing...
Isn't that what the one... the Ganger? What's her
That's the special code.
name? Oh, that's the
It's
code
the
for
character?
Star.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Which ganger is that?
I can't remember.
I'm sure I have her
The
then.
good one. You remember the episode? There was
yes.
the one
It's
good
the one
that
that survives to the end to go to the meeting to discuss.
Oh, okay.
the
I'll have,
doctor.
to, I'll have to look at
Yeah,
my characters, see if I have her.
the one whose real person had cancer. So
Yeah.
I guess they both did, essentially. All right, very good. Well, let's move on to feedback.
First up, Eric. Eric writes, comment question. Hey guys, I hope you get this before you start recording. A few things. First off, nice editing job, Glenn. I kept expecting my voice to cut out and then start up again, and I was surprised when it didn't. Now, since you said I could bring up old stuff, here's a few. 1. Keith never said he didn't see how David Tennant could be anyone's doctor. Although he did seem unimpressed with Tennant in the episode reviewing Blink, Silence in the Library, Force of the Dead. If I'm not mistaken, it was actually in the Robot review that he said he didn't see how Tom Baker could be anybody's doctor. Which is true, but that was me.
I think you did say that.
I did say that, but that was in jest.
Yeah, he was being... Because I think it had already been brought up about the...
Well, Sarah had already accused me of that at that point.
Right.
So I was joking about that part, Eric, just in case you weren't clear.
I don't see how Peter
But Eric
Capaldi
has
could be anybody's
qualified,
doctor.
which you've been saying all along,
Yes.
but you've never said it. So
Thank you, Eric. 2. The Moffat Lies meme of yours seemed to be based on the appearance of classic monsters in Series 6. I don't think he ever said that there wouldn't be any in Series 6. I'm pretty sure that he said he wouldn't reintroduce any classic monsters to New Who in Series 6, unlike how all 5 previous series did. Unless the Minotaur and God Complex counts as a Naimon, he kept to that promise. 3. As for Glenn's standing rant about monsters based on Earth creatures, I 100% agree. I have a hard time believing that so many aliens would evolve in ways similar to various animals on Earth. A trait or two borrowed from something here is excusable, especially if it's mix and match. But borrowing a whole cloth is simply lazy and stretches my suspension of disbelief. This is why the Terreptipil from the Visitation is fine, but the fish-headed alien from the beginning of Torchwood Season 2, Episode 1 is just plain stupid. Related to this is my rant about how the form of the Weeping Angels has made less and less sense with every appearance or mention. But that will wait for another time. Oh, and bagpipes are not uncommonly heard in my house. My wife and middle son, almost 4 years old, love them. I like them in moderation. Eric.
Eric, thank you for putting into words what I think Glenn's trying to say every time he says anthropomorphized aliens.
I started to like him when he did that, and then he talked about the bagpipes. No, yeah, thank you, Eric.
I think he finally made you make sense.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Next up, Michelle.
Which of Michelle's 2 am I reading?
Just the one.
May the 4th be with you. Michelle writes, May the 4th be with you. Hey guys, I had a great birthday this weekend, beginning of course with Friday Night Who at 1 a.m. ETD. Looking at the schedule, I'm mildly annoyed to discover that though we are watching 2 Fifth Doctor stories in my birth month, neither were watched on my actual birthday. When I got up, I went to my local comic book stores for Free Comic Book Day. While out, I bought, among other things, the 11th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver. Once I got home, I watched Doctor Who for a couple hours before my sister and her boyfriend took me to see Captain America the Winter Soldier. Afterwards, I Skyped with my parents, who were out of town for my brother's hockey tournament. Then this afternoon, after they got home, they gave me my present, which I've attached a picture of. They gave me a TARDIS nightlight, a TARDIS bracelet, a TARDIS pillow, and a pack of 5 pairs of Doctor Who socks. The pillow makes the materialization noise, so I've included a video of that. Now on to reviews. Well, first and foremost, happy birthday, Michelle.
Yes.
I've seen each of these stories at least a couple of times. I've watched Web of Fear before it was cool.
Oh, Michelle, you hipster.
They're all pretty good stories, but there seem to be some inconsistencies between the Snowmen and the Abominable Snowmen, the Web of Fear, which I've had to resolve by deciding that while the Great Intelligence arrived on Earth in the early 1700s and put into action its plan in Tibet, when it detected Simeon's mind about a... Is it Simeon or Simeon?
Simeon.
It is Simeon, like the ape.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, Simeon.
When it detected Simeon's mind about a century later, it felt it could use him to accelerate its plan slightly. When that failed because of the 11th Doctor, it returned its focus to Tibet, where it was stopped by the 2nd Doctor, who it possibly did not recognize as the same man. However, when the 2nd Doctor passed that way again, it recognized him and brought him to Earth to absorb his knowledge. Failure at that attempt weakened it, so it decided to lay low for a while. To be continued next week in Part 2 of this Adversary Archive. P.S. There was an idea a while ago to create a spin-off podcast with some of the female listeners of Traveling the Vortex. That is something I'd like to do. I'd be willing to organize it, so if anyone's interested, contact me and we can discuss ideas.
I think that is a wonderful idea.
I agree.
And I hope that there are listeners out there that would like to do that, because I highly encourage something like that.
Thirded.
And we'll include her picture and video in the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or separate?
Probably put them separate, because I don't like to put them in the same post that'll go onto the feed. So
yeah,
that'll be a separate post.
Up next,
Glenn will take care of that.
Yeah.
Chrissy.
I usually do, but unless I forget, then Sean takes care of it. Or Keith did last time.
I usually do, because I'm at work and have access to a computer.
All right. Chrissy writes, pretend I threw in a frozen joke here. Dear Vortex boys, I have some book club stuff to talk about. First off, thanks to everyone who participated in April's discussion.
Who's April? Have I met her yet?
After receiving input and suggestions, thanks everyone, I'm going to leave that discussion up until it goes a few weeks or so without anyone posting on it. That way, if someone wants to come and add their comments or finishes the book later, they can still participate. Also, May's book is Earthworld by Jacqueline Rayner, so people ought to start as soon as they can. This one should be easier to find since it was republished last year. There's also a new pull-up for people to vote on the book on what book they want the group to read in June. I added a few more titles, so it's not just the stuff that the podcast has reviewed. Again, if anyone has questions or needing help finding a book, please let me know. Hit me up on Goodreads or on Twitter. Well, it looks like I only have one thing to review since we've already talked about the Snowmen, and I didn't have time to read/listen to/watch the Abominable Snowmen on my own. The Web of Fear. I watched this last fall after I got it on iTunes, and it was a little tough to get through on my own. However, on this second viewing, I enjoyed it a lot more. Helps that I was watching with the Friday Night Who crew. I love all the interactions within Team TARDIS. Plus, it's the first appearance of the Brigadier. Yeah, he's not the Brigadier yet, but he's always going to be the Brigadier. One theory that floated out there during Friday Night Who is that UNIT was created because of the Yeti incident, and Lethbridge Stewart was put in charge because he was the only military mind that kept it all together during the whole thing. Sort of like how Peggy Carter became a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D. because of the events in Agent Carter. That's a one-shot Marvel short film they released on one of their Blu-rays, but I can't remember which one right now. I think it's Thor Dark World, wasn't it?
Thor 2.
No, it was...
Thor Dark World.
No, it was
Thor
Iron
Dark
Man
World.
3.
Oh, it was Iron
she's
Man
right.
3?
Sorry, he's
Because
right.
Thor Dark World was the Mandarin one, wasn't it?
Yep.
He's right.
Because I didn't
Alright.
see it until I recently picked it up.
Good point. Anyway, the second Doctor is awesome as usual. Watching Jamie and Victoria's relationship is always a treat, and it makes me happy that this and the Enemy of the World were found so we can see more of that. On the whole, The Web of Fear is a great story, and I'm glad it was found. Spoilers, I still like the Enemy of the World just a teeny bit more. That's all I have this week. See you all on the book club, or in Twitter, or whatever, and happy May the 4th be with you. 2 days later. Chrissy. P.S. Because I don't say it enough, and that's my fault, I absolutely love it when we get new feedback cinders in, whatever we're called. So, welcome Eric. Yay, more 5th Doctor Who fans. Yay, more 5th Doctor fans. And anyone else I've forgotten to recognize. You're all welcome and wonderful, and please send in more feedback because I like hearing from you all. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Yay!
And it was in the invasion that they referenced Web of Fear of the why unit is
invasion.
there.
Yeah.
But that's
The
certainly right.
episode,
And
The
you
Invasion.
pointed it out Friday as well that was the case.
Yeah.
But I think also we were kind of expounding on that as well. That Lethbridge Stewart, that the brig
the reason, yeah.
was put in place because of his experience with it as well.
Yeah, 'cause we never
not
got
just
that
the fact that they
confirmation.
had a invasion,
Yeah.
and potentially first contact for the UK. So.
Yeah. Because they never expounded on that in the invasion other than the Yeti business founded unit. Up next, Holly. Holly writes, "Hey guys, I really liked the story. The first part of the story, I was really chuckling when the Doctor was telling Jamie that he was imagining things, and there was a light flashing on the TARDIS. And then Victoria points it out as well, and the Doctor accuses Victoria of teaming up with Jamie. And then he sees the light as well. Also, Jamie's comment about the TARDIS and how the Doctor can't control her. The Doctor's comment had me shaking my head. I have to say, I really love Jamie and Victoria as companions in this story. Professor Travers and his daughter are very interesting. I'm going to have to try and track down the Abominable Snowmen audio. Charlie is a typical news reporter looking for a story. Can't say that I don't blame...
the dragon.
Can't say I don't blame Anne and Victoria for not letting him know too soon much information, but that's not long when Victoria lets slip about the TARDIS. Evans is quite an interesting character, or interesting soldier, and he plays very well off Jamie. Yay for the brig showing up. Nice to see UNIT before it was actually called UNIT. The reveal at the end to who the great intelligence was controlling, I didn't see coming. To tell you the truth, I actually thought it was going to be Chorley. The ending with the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria beating a hasty retreat from Chorley to the TARDIS had me chuckling. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on this story. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
I'm actually excited to talk about this because I kind of did this months ago when Snowmen came out.
Month
ago. All right, well, that's it, right?
Yep.
Let's get
That's
on
it
to
for
our
feedback. Where do we want to start?
Let's start in order. Well, we are doing a Adversary Archive this week on the Great Intelligence. This is part 1 of our Adversary Archive because we had to split this.
He's so great.
Yeah,
He needed to.
we had to set this into 2 parts because there's a lot of material involving the Great Intelligence, at least televised material, I should say, because there is some other stuff as well. But so I think we should technically start with Snowmen, because I think what we want to do is go in the order of the Great Intelligence timeline. Yeah.
So true chronological.
Yes, not story chronological. Or release chronological.
Well, we've already reviewed the Snowmen, so I'm not going to give a synopsis.
Good. I don't think we need that.
It had Ian McKellen in it, and it was awesome. By the way, Richard E. Grant had a birthday
Happy birthday, Richard.
yesterday, today. Sometime very
now
recent.
that you guys have... Now, I'm going to ask, did you guys get a chance to see or hear or listen to or watch or read The Abominable Snowman?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. And I kind of wondered being 6 parts and you being so busy, Sean. I didn't.
I wound up
Almost
finishing
didn't
Web of
expect.
Fear today, actually. And then
you weren't Friday night. Who were you?
Yeah, because we went to Omaha. And then I like I said, I really wanted to do it, and just kind of skittered past. And I was like, that's okay. I'm armed with my Wikipedia page, so I'm ready to talk about this.
Well,
but we're not. We're talking about the Snowmen.
yeah,
first.
I got to backtrack here a little bit. Well, the reason I bring it up is because of the fact that I'm saying we're going to do these chronologically, but Michelle brings up a good point that I think isn't really fully explained and does create a little bit of a continuity issue. But if we presume that the Great Intelligence basically came into existence or came into Earth's existence, we'll say that it was in the 18th century or Victorian London. Be the 18th century, right? Or is it 19th century? London, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what year the Snowmen took place.
18 something, so it's probably the
It'd be
19th century. Yeah. So 19th century London.
1892.
Okay,
is the year the Snowmen is set.
Very late. So 18th century or 19th century London.
Oh wait, 1842. No, that's the early Sydney.
I think 1892 is
1842,
correct.
50 years later. Yeah, so 1892.
42 would have been... Actually, 42 would have been right.
42 is the
The
very,
bulk
very,
of the
very
episode
beginning.
is set in...
Well, okay, so this Great Intelligence was there in 1842,
Yes.
Yeah.
chronologically.
Right.
And then it waited.
Which,
Right.
did you guys go back and rewatch
Well,
this,
I don't think it
these
even
Snowmen?
waited. It sort of... It
No, I'd been manipulating him from...
It had. And,
Well,
and
the impression you get from the Snowmen is it fell to Earth, however, and just kind of lay dormant until it found something that it could latch onto, and it just happened to be Dr. Simeon.
Right.
And that's how it got to be as strong as it is through his life.
Correct.
And then, therefore, you can extrapolate that it can, because of that event, go on to do Tibet and the stuff in the Abominable Snowman. That's how I took it.
The problem you run into with that theory, though, is that Padmus Amphibol...
Padmasandabal.
That's him.
Sandabal.
Lived for 300 years.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And you have
Forgot
to
about
either...
that part.
you have...
Maybe they're exaggerating.
I think the idea is, well, they didn't, because the Doctor said he returned 300 years later.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he knew Padma back in the day. And
Good old
so,
Patty.
Yeah.
That's
knew
a chair
Patty
with a
back in the
Padma
day.
in it.
He did Patty back in the day. The only thing that I can do to kind of rectify the chronology there is well, there's some speculation that the great intelligence, until this period of manifesting itself on Earth to take over Earth, existed on the astral plane, and it's still to a point sort of still exists
there, yeah.
on the astral plane. So time may not be relative to that dimension, and so that kind of gives the impression that it could be two places at once, or trying to manifest in two time zones or timelines or time periods at once. I also presume that because P was a
Dropping it down that
spiritual person and a monk, that perhaps he lived a long time before the intelligence.
And he was already elderly.
Yeah, there was already. I mean, and by a long time, I mean maybe even lived 200 years. You kind of have to bring in that spirituality thing. I mean, they've talked about monks and spiritual leaders and stuff in the past having lived, much longer than the life expectancy of a person. So I can kind of fudge it a little bit there, and that it wasn't until much in his much accelerated years that it had found him and taken him over. Yeah.
Maybe there's a
I can see
rift
that.
in Tibet that connects to the miracle day, the blessing, and that's why he's so long lived. That's scientific. That's not spiritual. You're okay with that, right?
Yeah,
Worked it in.
but regardless of the fact, yeah, there is that little discrepancy in this. But I think it's interesting that the motives are the same all the way through. Essentially, the great intelligence is trying to take on a form so that it can essentially rule the world, take over the world. That's its MO. That's essentially what it's looking for in everything until later, which we'll touch on next week. But I like the consistency in, although the pyramids aren't evident in the Snowmen, but I kind of take
it looked more like, to me, pyramids of spheres.
It was, and the sphere aspect is there because he's in that
He's in the sphere, and the spheres are in the Yeti.
Yes,
I mean, all of that makes sense, and so I just assumed the data streamlined the intelligence streamlined the process for Web of Fear, and that's why they were pyramids, and that like a different form of pyramids.
well, that's true too. But
I didn't get the impression it was the same pyramid.
No. I don't
Although
think it's a
Jamie
pyramid.
knew about
I think
it, so he
that,
needed to
that-
destroy it. So
I
it's
think
kinda like,
that
what?
the great intelligence is using pyramids as a vehicle, not necessarily the same pyramid. Yeah, no, you're absolutely
As
right.
opposed to the snow globe that he was in the
Right.
the Snowmen.
But that's the thing is, I think it's interesting that they didn't use any sort of they used the spherical analogy, but you don't see the imagery of the pyramid at all in the Snowmen, even though that was kind of a big deal in both of the Yeti stories.
Do you think it would have
especially
spoiled
more
it?
so in Web of Fear.
It might have. And another thing I like about this is the fact that even though that the Doctor has experienced the great intelligence and hit the great intelligence in his past timelines, he doesn't recognize the great intelligence as the great intelligence until near the end of the Snowmen. Even after he has tipped off the London Underground a strategic point.
Yeah. Well,
That'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
Earlier.
And it was so long ago in his time too, so you can kind of it makes sense that he doesn't remember him as well.
And it's not manifesting in the same way.
Well, yeah.
This time it's
If
manifesting.
it were Yetis, he would probably recognize them.
It's manifesting in what they call the living snow, and that's how it's trying to, but with the help of Simeon, obviously, and so that technically is its first attempt at manifesting in some sort of form in its goal to take over the Earth. So there's not much more I think I can say about the great intelligence in the Snowmen. The Snowmen in itself,
I think we've pretty well covered it.
the Snowmen in itself is a good story, and I don't think we need to even go into a review of how good and the aspects of that show. But I like the fact that Stephen Moffat has come along and kind of created a nexus point or a beginning point or an origin point of the Snowmen to kind of cleverly tie it into the series.
It's really, in a way, it's almost the genesis of the Daleks of the of the Great Intelligence's story.
In a sense, yeah.
It's the origin story for it, at least in regards to this. Now, are we certain that it fell to Earth?
I thought they mentioned that.
Did they mention that? That's the part I don't remember, because I'll be honest, I did not go back and rewatch Snowmen. But
I did go back and rewatch
I think
Snowmen.
fell to Earth was a bit of a metaphor. I don't think it actually fell to Earth.
Oh, it just arrived on Earth.
Yeah, I get the impression that it was awakened, essentially.
Is it possible that the Great
astral plane
Intelligence would attempt to take over Mars or, other planets at all, or is it pretty much strictly located here?
Oh, I think it's because this is where it ended up. There's I don't remember where it's mentioned, and it might be even in some of the stuff I read about the novels, that there is a reason why it ended up on Earth or was pushed to Earth. But regardless of why it's there, it is. So I think your question's valid. Yeah, if it had ended up on Mars, it
wouldn't have anything to do.
Well,
in the 1870s or in the 1800s,
we don't know where
on Mars.
We don't know where the Icemen were, or the Ice Warriors.
Yeah, it would have woken up.
They mentioned that it was like millions of years ago.
It would have tried to take over Sutek.
Maybe that's why it didn't land on Mars.
It would have tried to take over the...
Sutek warned it away and sent it to Earth.
Or it would have manifested itself in that virus in the waters of Mars. There was a lot of sentient life in that.
It could have taken over the red dust.
Just because we didn't know about it.
Instead of the Snowmen, it would have been called the red dust.
The snowstorm. Or the sandstorm.
The sandstorm.
Yeah, so, I mean, the fact that it's on Earth is just relevant to the fact that it wants to take over the world. So.
Yeah. I after watching the first 3 of Web of Fear, I went and watched the Snowmen before I started the Abominable Snowmen. And walking away from this, knowing what I knew from the first half of Web of Fear, the Snowmen, while it's a good story, it's a better quasi-companion introduction than a good villain story, I think. It's a good setup for what happens later in the Great Intelligence timeline, regardless of timey-wiminess of it. But I think it's a starting point more than anything else. Less Genesis, more starting. Does that make sense?
Because of Clara?
Snowman is? Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, yeah. That
it doesn't really build on the Great Intelligence too much, other than gives it some sort of origin.
Yes. No, I agree. I think that's what I
and I agree with what you said, that the MO through these 3 stories remain the same.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
That was what I walked away from.
Yes, I would agree.
Do you think had it been a giant snow pyramid as opposed to a giant snow globe, that would have been an instant tip-off, that old school fans would have gone, oh my god, I think they're going here with that? Is that why they stayed away from it from a design standpoint?
I think that's possible, but I think
it
I
doesn't
also
make as much sense for snow.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, in a storytelling sense, a snow pyramid does not make sense like a snow globe does.
But then again, they posted GI on a whole... I mean, he even gives his business card at the very beginning. It says GI. I think that...
They dropped the hint
to me, early. Until... I mean, I obviously didn't recall... I mean, I knew enough of the Abominable Snowman to know about the Great Intelligence, but had never seen it up until that point. So I didn't know that they were dropping the hint with the GI. However, I think people that are fans enough that have seen that are familiar more so than I was at that time recognize that probably
part of it also, from what I recall from Web of Fear and Abominable Snowman, I didn't write down or anything, they predominantly just called it the Intelligence. It was not the Great Intelligence in these 2 stories. It was just the Intelligence. So even the GI is kind of misdirection in a sense, because you're making it great when previously it wasn't.
Well, but no, it's referred to as both the Intelligence and the Great Intelligence.
But
predominantly it's the Intelligence, but it refers to itself as the Great Intelligence, or at least when it's
monologuing.
Yeah, when it's monologuing, that's certainly true. Well, whether it was speaking through P or when it had the, I can't remember what was his abbot was called. I don't remember his name. It started with a D.
Gandalf.
No. You said D, right? No.
Yeah, it started with a D, I believe. I can't remember. I wish I should have the book open here. That's why I brought this over here. Because I actually this time through read the Terrence Dicks written
There was
novel,
nobody with the letter D.
novelization.
Did you finish it?
First name.
I did finish it. Yeah.
Good for you.
It took me 3 days. It's only 140 some pages, and I tore right through it. It's a quick read. And my mini review of the book is it's very enjoyable. Terrence Dicks, who is a master at writing these novels, and rightfully so because of his history of Doctor Who, does a superb job. And it was everything I remembered from the recon that I had listened to, and more. I mean, it really just kind of
I'm sure
it stepped into the minds of
yeah.
each one of them and kind of gave more of the feel of what was happening and what was going through people's minds at the time.
Cresson?
It was Cresson, yeah, I think it was. No, Cresson was the master of the guard, wasn't it?
I got
I
so
didn't know
confused
names
by
confused
all
you.
the names in this story.
It's
It's not even funny.
harder when you're watching telesnaps or listening to
Yeah.
it. It's a little easier when you're reading it. I'll get it open here at some point. Anyway, either way, it referred to itself as the Great Intelligence at one point as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
Best thing about the Snowmen? Gandalf.
Well, I have a
Patmos
synopsis for the
and
Abominable Snowman if we want to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mysterious forces are at work in 1930s Tibet. The once gentle Yeti have turned savage and besieged a Buddhist monastery. The second Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria arrive expecting a friendly welcome from the abbot, but soon become ensnared in the plans of an extra-dimensional being known as the Great Intelligence.
You're right, Keith. It was Cresson.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
the head of the guard or the warriors was Sansen.
Oh, okay.
Sansen.
I'd give this story a dun dun dun.
No.
I
have flip flopped them in my head again. Sansen was the one. I'm sorry.
the names are really
You're right.
confusing.
The names are very confusing. Well, Tomney is the good guy, the one that the Doctor initially
the one
tells
that
that he's brought back the
ends up teaming up with
charm.
him. Yeah.
Okay, he's Fred. From now on.
He's
Fred.
Tom.
Okay, Tom. Tom I can do. We can do Tom. That's Tom.
Yeah. So anyway, the TARDIS sets down in Tibet, and the Doctor has a plan, essentially, to return a relic that he had taken with him for safekeeping 300 years ago. Which I already like this premise. I already like the idea.
This can only end.
That, and it's revealed to us. Well, it's revealed to us that the relic went missing during the. I think it was when the Chinese had raided the monastery back in the 1700s or something like that.
Yeah.
And the relic goes missing, but it's kind of relayed to us by the Doctor that it had to go because it's such a sacred piece that they were afraid it would fall into the hands of the invading forces, and so that's why he took
it for safekeeping.
Well, the first time that I watched and listened to this, my impression was that the Doctor just took it.
Yeah,
and
that's the impression
because he
from
thought it was
from
cool.
watching the episode. Well, he does say for safekeeping.
Yeah, but my second time through, and then reading
maybe
this, they kind of
Terrace-
established the fact that Pam, I don't know say the guy's name. Pam Sandoval.
Sandoval.
He, I get the impression he sent it away with the Doctor, and that the Doctor did it as a favor, took it as a favor.
See, watching the episode or the telesnap, you get he definitely took it thinking it was going to be helpful. Now, if Terrence added that bit, I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, that certainly plays into what we've kind of come to know of the Doctor later through books in Big Finish when the Seventh Doctor's talking about
Well, and the Eighth Doctor,
the Seventh
too.
Doctor borrows a lot of things.
you know procuring
Borrows.
items from history because well you can't be trusted with it.
right. So it does stay in line with that. Something that didn't strike me until this time, and I'm kind of jumping around, but going back to the pyramid imagery and the spheres and whatnot, it didn't occur to me until I was reading the book that the power source that's in the mountain, and Travis is up there, and the energy starts to go, and they talk about the mist coming down the side of the mountain, or there was fire, I guess, was coming down the side of the mountain from the energy source within the cave. It didn't occur to me until this time that the reason why that was in the cave is because the Great Intelligence is using the mountain, which is another pyramid, essentially, or peak form,
put that together
in order to... Because you get the impression from this, and even Web of Fear, that the pyramid somehow is a energy conductor for it, while the Great Intelligence can manifest itself within living organisms. They're merely just vehicles for him to do what he needs to do. P is used essentially to create the army of Yeti, which in turn is used to scare off the monks from the monastery, so that he can use that as a base of operations and put the plan in place in order to take over the world.
So it's essentially a Scooby-Doo plot. He's got a robot astronaut wandering around the amusement park, keeping the pesky kids out.
It's actually kind of true.
See, and I never understood how he made the Yeti to begin with. That's something I felt like they didn't really address.
Science fiction!
They don't address it. What we do know is that P spent X amount of years, hundreds of years, under the influence of the Great Intelligence, devising this, creating this. I can only presume that the Great Intelligence had a higher level of knowledge of science and the workings.
It would have to in 1930.
Because the things are quite advanced. They've these little spheres that control these robot Yeti in 1930. Clearly there. But also I can kind of excuse it, because if he had been possessing P for that many years, I could see him slowly and methodically putting it together, and all of these Tibetan monks, these followers of his, essentially he's raised to a point of he's like the sacred, he's not a god, but he's like the highest level of this
essentially
group.
Gandhi.
Yeah, essentially. And so they probably were doing a lot of things that they didn't realize behind the scenes, that once everything culminated, it's kind of like Bruce Wayne putting together his Batcave. He's collecting things from so many different places that nobody knows that everything's interconnected, but then ultimately it all becomes one piece. Yeah. And I get the impression that maybe that was what was going on behind the scenes, and that's why he had to, for 200 years, put this plan together.
So
again,
going back to the synopses for just a moment. The Yeti. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeti is kind of a mythical creature, right?
Well, they're cryptozoological.
Yeah.
Essentially, abominable snowmen.
Right.
It's the Bigfoot.
And the idea there is Traverse is there because there have been Yeti sightings, legitimate Yeti sightings, in Tibet. And so Traverse is there because he's this explorer, professor, who is trying to essentially discover a Yeti and prove that they exist. Well, suddenly, the proof is there, but unfortunately it's not the biological Yeti that we presume. It's the robot Yetis that the Great Intelligence has engineered.
Which is why they're attacking people.
Yes.
Okay, because the synopsis talks about friendly Yeti, and I'm like, wait a minute.
They allude to the fact
they give
that...
the idea that the Yeti...
It's just because they've not been spotted in public, really.
They give the impression that, there aren't... At least I got the impression that there aren't real Yeti. They're all just been robot Yeti. Until the very end, where Travers thinks he spots one. And then it kind of leaves the idea of, wait, there might be actual Yeti out there.
I disagree with that. And the reason I say that is because they have the conversation where the monks talk about how the Yeti were peaceful until recently. And then they started attacking.
I just assumed those were still robots.
I kind of went there as well until at the end when Travers sees what could have possibly been a real Yeti. I get the impression that the Yeti really existed, that the biological Yeti really existed. The Great Intelligence realized that he could use that existence of a Yeti to create the
something.
robotic Yetis, so that when they did attack, nobody would suspect that they were robots or anything but what they thought they were before. So the peaceful Yeti runs away and hides and is gone, while the robot Yetis are attacking. Once the robot Yetis are dispatched, the biological Yeti comes back. And there could have been 1, there could have been 10, or 50
I could
or
see that.
100. But
I guess another reason why I didn't jump to the conclusion, although it hinted at it at the end, that there were real Yeti, was the fact that there's no mention of them actually being real in the Web of Fear. It was all just, he brought back a robotic Yeti, that's all there was.
Well, that's the other thing
you
is...
think they would have made mention of, yes, and Travers discovered true Yetis, etc. Some sort of reference to the fact that he actually made some significant discovery other than robotic Yeti.
But that's the beauty of the opening of Web of Fear, is the idea that Travers still is kind of this empty professor who never caught his Yeti.
Oh, so, okay.
And it's because I get the assumption that once he sees the Yeti at the end of Abominable Snowmen, he tracks it but loses it and still never has proof that it exists. So that's the idea of why he brings the robotic Yeti back, because at least this was something tangible, an event that happened, and even though it's not a real Yeti, it's something that he can latch onto and say, okay, here's proof of what I have found. And so I get the impression that that's why there's still that Travers that we kind of get at the beginning of Abominable Snowman, where he's on this quest, but he just hasn't achieved his goal yet. And so I that's kind of how I rectified the idea of the fact that that's why there's a robot Yeti here instead of a real Yeti, or there's still no proof of a real Yeti because
that
he
totally
didn't
makes
actually
sense to
find
me.
it. So.
Explaining it that way. Now, I don't know if it was because of the telesnaps and the reconstruction, but while I enjoyed the entire story and it felt like it moved very quickly, some of it's kind of a blur and I think I lost a lot of the details of part of the story.
I think that can happen because I thought the same thing.
But also, it felt like a lot of it was running back and forth between the TARDIS and the monastery.
Well, there's not a lot of that. I mean, they start at the TARDIS, they go to the monastery.
Well,
Jamie
they start at the TARDIS. Doctor goes at the monastery.
Doctor goes to the monastery. Jamie and
go halfway there, then halfway back, and then
they go to explore that cave.
Yeah,
remember that's where they end up first, is in that cave, and that's where they discover the pyramid of spheres the first time, and that's why Jamie knows. And in fact, Jamie later is trying to convince the Doctor that the power source is in the cave, when in fact they're both right. The power source is both in the monastery and that little anteroom behind the sacred chamber. Yeah, the other connecting source is the one inside the cave in the mountain, where the Yetis seem to go when the Great Intelligence isn't needing them or running them as pawns with this little board. That was another thing that didn't come across real clear in the telesnaps, were I could almost picture this chessboard of these pawns, and that's kind of how he moves and advances the Yetis and control them, is by positioning them at certain points on this board, and that must send a signal to whatever. To the receivers and the Yetis that give them their instructions. As well.
I kind of got that impression, but you don't really get a good. You don't get to see them very well. Yeah. It comes across obviously that there just weren't pictures of it.
Right.
Unfortunately. This is a story that I really wish existed in its entirety.
I do
because
too.
It's so enjoyable through most of it. And I said that it felt like there was a lot of running back and forth between the TARDIS and the monastery, but I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where maybe I think it happened more than it did, but I still enjoyed it so much that I was okay with it going back and forth.
Well, and
partially because of Troughton as the Doctor is so much fun to listen to.
Travers runs off a lot too, because when the story begins, Travers is basically, he thinks the Doctor is encroaching on his territory, that he's there to explore the Yeti and to find it, and so he basically tells the monastery that the Doctor attacked his team, because something attacked and killed his team.
And I got the impression that while he doesn't necessarily know what attacked the team, he felt pretty secure, and he wasn't just using the Doctor as an easy scapegoat.
Well, I don't even think it was that. Is because he tells them that he's the one that attacked his team, but it was mostly so that they would keep the Doctor and he could go off and do his Yeti thing
there was
again.
some of that.
And I don't think Travers knew that they were as serious about the crime in the monastery with the Doctor, because when he goes off, he tells Jamie that he doesn't. Well, he relays in some way that he doesn't think that they would do anything to him, or they couldn't prove that what he was saying was... Because I don't think Travers thought the Doctor had... He was just using that as a way to keep the Doctor tied up while he was off doing his thing. And in fact, that's when he encounters Jamie and Victoria, who then in turn make a deal with Travers. If you take me to the monastery, we'll tell you where we saw the Yeti you're looking for. So... And of course, the thing that gets the Doctor out of his bind of, well, I can't be who, Travers thinks I am, because, well, they would have had to been, huge, and I'm this little guy. And even though if he had that was a nice thing that the coat kind of played into that was, well, look, he's wearing a coat. So
the big fur coat.
Yeah, exactly. But he's at the point where he's almost convincing the monks that he hasn't. But his ace in the hole is the fact that he has brought this relic back, and he tells Tomlin that, go find that. I've left it underneath the cot in the cell, or it wasn't a cell, the room where they were keeping him in. And he goes back and he shows it to him, and then that kind of clears his name in the sense that, yeah, he really...
But not before we get a great scene of him tied to a gate.
As the Yeti are advancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that part of
that's what
still
Jamie, Victoria,
exists.
Travis show back up, yeah.
And that we picked that up in episode 2, and that episode actually exists.
Yeah,
that part was so enjoyable to watch.
I like that the Great Intelligence takes over, somewhat takes over Victoria.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes her under his control.
I don't remember that in Abominable Snowmen. I remember that in Web of Fear.
Took over Travers and
He took over Travers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He takes over Victoria.
Okay.
And because the Doctor has to use hypnosis essentially to separate his mind from hers, so that because remember she's confused, and she says, I can't remember exactly what she's saying, but she's confused and she's scared. She's like, and in fact, that's why he gives her, or he has Tomlin teach her the Lotus and the Flower prayer, so that he can't get the Great Intelligence can't get back into her mind as well.
Yeah,
so.
I remember that now.
But again, this is another story where I thought the story is quite enjoyable, and there's a lot of things here that I really liked about it. But the Great Intelligence still is this from point A to point B. It's the intelligence it's concocted a plan to take over the world that is once again thwarted by the Doctor. In his perspective, it's for the first time in the Doctor's perspective.
Well, and in a way, the Snowmen kind of does this story a disservice, because very early on, I recognized that the Polo Sandoval, or whatever his name is, was the one being used by the Yeti, or by the Great Intelligence, and has been taken over. So there's no great surprise there, unlike Web of Fear.
Right.
And I think that's because I kind of already know the modus operandi for the Great Intelligence at that point. Or maybe they just...
You say there's no surprise in Web of Fear?
Well, no, in Abominable Snowmen.
See, but I don't think there needed to be, because nothing technically preceded this.
Oh, that's true.
We had seen Snowmen before this. But
and that's why I'm saying I think the Snowmen kind of does this story a disservice, the Abominable Snowmen a disservice. No, because you having watched the Snowmen first, watching it in the Great Intelligence order, you kind of lose that little bit of Vader is Luke's dad.
In the order that we're doing it, you're absolutely right. In the order of release, it actually still works, because they picked
up the fact that
they got a little covert with it though, with the Snowman, and so
that's true.
I think that's what works for it in that setup, that linear progression.
And I think the difference is, I would have figured out that Padmas, whatever his name is.
I'm going to get this. I practiced it. It's Padmasambhava.
Padmasambhava
Padmasambhava
was the one behind
Shaun does it
everything.
the best.
I just wouldn't have known it was Great Intelligence doing it, watching it the first time. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah.
I still would have picked up who the bad guy was.
Right.
I just wouldn't realize there was an even bad guy that was pulling his strings.
I got you. I sort of see where you're coming from there in that sense, though. Yeah.
I have to say, in both of these these two stories, I really like Victoria in them, even though she kind of gets hijacked and doesn't get to be herself through part of this one. I remember watching,
and she's pretty well related to Second Banana and Web of Fear.
Well, and yeah, but
well, especially since we introduced Travis's daughter.
Yeah.
But after having seen Tomb of the Cybermen and not being overly impressed by her, and the Ice Warriors and not being overly impressed by her, these are two pretty solid Victoria stories, I think, compared to what we have had before. And of course, Jamie the Doctor, awesome as always.
Yeah, but I can't remember for sure if this came before or after. Tomb was pretty recent, was pretty early in Victoria's run, right? It was only her second story.
Yeah, I think it was.
So there you're getting a lot of introduction.
Well,
there's not a lot of reason for her other than the fact that they just picked her up.
Well, Ice Warrior, or Tomb of the Cybermen preceded Abominable Snowmen.
Yeah, so there you go.
And Ice Warriors directly follows.
So I think that we've sort of developed her story enough for this one, but you're right. Ice Warriors is then
she kind of falls back to Tomb of the Cybermen in that one.
Damsel in distress, screaming. Yeah, I can see that. No, but I'm quite impressed by her in this story, and I'm quite impressed. And I'm the same way, and I'm of both sides of this. Is I'm impressed with her character, and it feels like there's more done with her in both of these stories. But Sean's right; she does kind of end up getting that second banana seat in Web of Fear, and I think most of that is because of the introduction of Travis's daughter, which is maybe a little unnecessary. We'll get there in a minute. I don't have much more to say about the Abominable Snowmen other than it sets up a lot. It sets up the MO, or in the way that we're doing it, it kind of expands on the MO of the Great Intelligence, or at least it reinforces the MO of the Great Intelligence. I don't know that it expands on it because, again,
it's pretty much
the ultimate goal is world domination. But I thoroughly enjoy the story, and I'm like you. I long for the day that we actually get the recovered episodes of this, because I'd like to see.
Well, just watching the one episode that existed was so much fun.
And it's very engaging.
Yeah.
The whole story is very engaging, but yeah, that particular episode is quite, and like you said, it's just hearing and seeing Patrick Troughton.
Yeah,
it
makes
so wonderful though.
Any missing story even better.
Anyway, the Doctor thwarts the Great Intelligence once again.
That's a funny word, thwart. Thwart.
In its existence, and so that brings us now to
the Web of Fear. In order to escape
we can hear more from Sean.
An attack in space, the TARDIS makes an unscheduled landing and ends up deep inside London Underground. Here, the travelers soon find themselves engulfed in a thrilling battle with the Great Intelligence and the Yeti, a deadly enemy set to invade Earth. But as events take a turn for the worse, it becomes clear that the golden prize is not just the Earth, but the Doctor's mind, too.
Dun, dun, dun.
I concur.
Yeah, I would agree.
As much as I enjoyed the Abominable Snowmen, I think I enjoyed the Web of Fear more. And I don't know if that's just because we have the actual episodes. I don't know how much of that is clouding my mind.
That's definitely a plus.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to like here. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I'll be honest. As I'd said when we first kind of started talking about this, I'd read the novelization, which, if I'm not mistaken, is another Terrence Dicks. Long time ago.
Right.
I think, yeah.
I read that one as a kid, and it was atmospheric and creepy, and it was a wonderful Doctor Who read. And I was actually just vaguely a little disappointed with it this time out. And I don't know if it's because of, maybe not living up to the pictures in my head from the book. because I concocted great subway sets in my head. Not that these weren't good. In fact, as we reported on Friday Night Who, they were apparently so good. The London Underground accused the BBC of breaking in and sneaking photos and shooting on the property when they weren't supposed to. They were that authentic. But I don't know. I don't know if it was a matter of the way I constructed it in my head was better than seeing the actual film version, or if maybe I was expecting something a little different. It's not that it's a bad story at all. There's a lot of great stuff. Obviously, Travers is wonderful. His daughter, kind of torn on. I like the fact that she's a strong female character. I like the fact that she's a scientist who can hold her own. And not only as a research assistant to her scatterbrained dad, but, against the Doctor. But it really made me feel that Victoria kind of got, like I said, second banana. She's left out for good chunks of it. She has nothing to do but stand around and scream and react to things. And she's kind of shuttled from room to room in the Army safe house. Stay here where it's safe, or stay here where it's safe. Oh, we're going to go out. Oh, well, we better go back where it's safe. And that kind of stuff. And then she gets captured. And suddenly, she becomes a great companion again. Because the story's about her. And she's dropping, beads and things to let, people know this is the path they took. And, doing very smart things as opposed to...
Jamie picks up on.
Yes.
Which I thought was cool.
So, all of that's wonderful. And, of course, we get the brig before he's the brig. And I've totally retconned in my head that this was the, Geneva called and said, we're putting together this special task force, and you have more experience dealing with alien incursions than anybody else, so you get the job.
Imagine that scene from the end of Iron Man.
Yeah.
Where Nick shows up and says, we're putting together a team.
We're putting together a team. We'd like you to be part of it. How much do you know about the UNIT initiative? I think I'm going to write that. But
going back to Trevor's daughter for a second, I thought she was a great, strong character, but then I felt like she just kind of dropped off once her dad disappeared. And she becomes kind of more of... I don't know the word for it.
Well, she fills that companion role.
She kind of does, but not the awesome companion role.
Yeah, she's just there to hold things.
She does end up holding things and giving the Doctor things and being his extra set of hands, but I felt like the character was already established well enough that she was more than that. That she kind of de-evolved as a character for a little while.
Well, and it happens about the same time that
Victoria's
coming out.
Yeah, that's true.
So they apparently felt like they could only do one thing at a time with these two characters.
The females, yeah. That's certainly true.
This particular group of non-unit entities has a wonderful mix of the stalwart, what was his name? The Sarge. Staff.
Well, his name is Anderson? Anderson?
That seems right.
I don't think it's
but
Anderson.
They all call him Staff because he's a staff sergeant.
Because he's a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
Loved his character. Absolutely loved it. I was so disappointed when he died. And then I was so happy to see him back. And then I was so angry when he turned out to be the bad guy. It was just, because he was great.
Do we ever... that was one of the things I couldn't remember. Arnold. This is one of the things I couldn't remember this time. Do we see him die?
He just kind of disappears.
Yeah, he just disappears off screen because he's going into the into the web.
It wasn't until this time. Okay, I suppose that's what it was. It wasn't until this time that... when was it in the episode that he went into the web? That he disappeared there.
Well, that was...
Was it in the telesnaps of 3?
I think that was in... Yeah,
okay, maybe that's why.
Because 4 picks up and it's like a full-on battle on the streets of London.
Because something that occurred to me this time is
everybody dies.
We go a long time with the GI in disguise in Staff, if you look at it that way, in Arnold.
Oh, that's true.
Because there's a lot more Arnold after that.
Yeah.
And then because he shows back up and you just presume that it's the same guy, but then when you find out it's not him, that he's been dead
for a really long time.
Yeah, that they've reanimated, that the GI's reanimated his body. Essentially,
I was surprised at how many.
It's a zombie story.
That died. throughout
many
the
what?
story. How many characters died?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
There for a while, I was like, oh, there's only going to be like 4 people left.
Yeah, this
This
one-
reporter didn't die.
This one's got a pretty high
And then,
body
and then
count.
people... But then they reversed it quasi with Arnold coming back and then the reporter coming back.
Yeah.
It's like the characters that I didn't want coming back.
Did anybody think that maybe that the reporter was going to be the one that was possessed? I think that's where they're going with that.
I thought so initially,
Make
but
it
Jamie was
deplorable.
hammering it home so hard that it was like, no,
Well,
I don't buy it anymore.
Jamie was hammering it home with the wasn't he hammering? Well, no, you're right. But Jamie also is the one that's kind of playing off the what was the driver's name?
Yeah.
that was and they had that wonderful banter back and forth with, well, how do I know that you're not the bad guy, and how do I know you're not the bad guy? It was that wonderful scene there where they're walking in the down the rails, and they're like, well, I guess neither one of us is going to trust the other. It's kind of the impression that they gave.
I really liked the driver initially and his particular shtick. And then by the time episode, I don't know, 5.5, 6 rolled around, I was like,
It gets tired.
I'm kind of done with
Yeah, it gets the role gets
you.
very
When the
tired.
brig gets annoyed with him, I'm annoyed with
Yeah,
him. It's
I
like,
thought the same thing.
are you going to commit treason or not? Are you AWOL at this point?
Yeah,
we throw you out.
Run off. Get out of here.
But I
Well,
find,
being that he was the only one that survived in that unit, you kind of wonder if he's going to end up being the bad guy. The
Yeah.
bad, which is obviously where they were. The
they
misdirection.
tried to
they're
give you a
trying
lot of
give,
misdirection in the story. What I find odd about this story is how it kind of starts and we're going, and then all of a sudden we land in the underground and we have no idea what's going on. It's kind of this jarring in a way. I, in fact, went back and rewatched parts 1 through 3 before Friday Night Who to make sure I didn't miss something of explaining what was going on and why all these crews were in the underground and what was happening. And it felt like they didn't quite address it well enough and explain the situation.
No, you're really just kind of thrown into the situation.
Like you get
and
this shot of the
you're-
sign of of everybody leave and then the webbed human and
You're just expected that this is something that they've been dealing with prior
no idea
to
how long
the Doctor,
or-
and Jamie, and Victoria showing up. Yeah.
it's just very disjarring because it'd be one thing if we were following along with these characters from the beginning of the episode, but to have Travers in the museum looking at the Yeti, and while it was necessary for the exposition of why the Yeti have come back to life in hindsight, it almost feels that's why it feels so disjarring. If we got that explanation while he was with the soldiers underground, it almost would have been better served for the story.
Done as a flashback instead of as a lead-off.
Or even just
Because
as a conversation. Not
Yeah.
even, it didn't have to be a flashback.
Clearly, as a lead-off, there's some time that has passed between the museum and the
but
events
they
in the
don't
underground.
address that
Right,
issue at all,
yeah.
so it makes it so disjarring and almost unjointed when you start the story.
Who is it that likes... there's like 2 different types of zombie flicks. There's the already in full swing outbreak, or everything's already happened, it's already bad, and then there's the outbreak story.
Right.
And this feels like the more the Walking Dead style, that it's already been going on.
Yeah.
I Am Legend.
Yeah, that you're just here dealing with it. And I agree with you, Keith. I think if the museum open hadn't been there, or at least had not been there in the way that it had, I don't think it would have felt so disjointed.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we're dropped in the middle of the story.
I agree,
That doesn't
because
bother
how
me.
many times
Well,
has
I
how many times has the Doctor showed up, and then the events get rolling? Mm-hmm. And
But I also think that
I like the
most
idea of the
those
fact that the Doctor
instances-
shows up while things have already been going on.
Yeah. I just think they could have done a better job explaining what the true situation was.
I agree.
And it's really kind of just a small nitpick, because once you start getting rolling with the underground stuff, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you kind of piece it together in your mind and figure it out. But
Honestly, though, this is yet another. Surely did not need to be 6 parts. I really felt like. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but there was a lot of stuff that it was, running through corridors, literally.
Yeah, see,
I felt like we could have trimmed certainly 2 full episodes out of it and done a really, really strong 4-parter.
I may have felt that way if I didn't feel like the pacing of this one was really good and really strong. And even though, you're right, there's a lot of attacks and a lot of running through corridors, I
At
like
least
the
15 minutes of episode 4. It's
I
just
like
battle.
the action
Yeah.
sequences. I like the fact
was
that
a
we
nice-
get full on battle in one of these, and it's not a little 10-minute battle that is. It's a more realistic feel that there's actually a struggle here, and some the military force is necessary. It made it feel necessary in this. So I didn't feel. It certainly could have been 4 parts. I think you could have done it in 4 parts, but 6 parts did not bother me as it has in some episodes in the past.
Well, and they probably did that too, just from the standpoint that we needed to get up top because we've spent 3 episodes underground, and people are going nuts. So, look, daylight.
I wonder if you could get stir crazy from watching an episode. The whole sunlight deprivation and all.
There were times where, well, maybe because it was just how my day went today, that I felt like I was going a little stir crazy.
Claustrophobic feeling.
Like, oh look, we're in the dark again.
Well, Keith lived that on Saturday. So.
Yes, I did.
I don't know that there's much more else I can say other than I like the ending. I like the idea that the Great Intelligence essentially laid in wait and trapped the Doctor. The other thing I like about...
That's a nice... While he's still trying to get the form and take over the world, I thought that was a nice change of pace from Abominable Snowmen. Changing up the MO slightly.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say.
And it wasn't so much that he wanted to take over the Doctor's body, not that. The fact that he was
the
after
Doctor's
his mind was brilliant.
Because... and if you look at it with the retconning we have to do with the Snowmen, if you look at it in the sense that the Doctor has thwarted him twice. Now, I don't get the impression that the Great Intelligence puts together the fact that the 11th Doctor and the 2nd Doctor are the same
Doctor.
but I kind of get the impression that you can kind of presume that maybe the Great Intelligence had maybe sort of pieced it together and realized that, okay, I've been thwarted by this guy at least once, maybe twice. It's his mind that I can use in order to, again, we're still overthrowing the world, but we're going to use another vehicle. We're expanding our horizons on how we're going to achieve that.
Yeah.
Maybe the Great Intelligence didn't know until after it was defeated and it laid in wait and it began to develop its, I'm going to hide out in the internet and the Wi-Fi, and it started utilizing the internet, and it found that Craig's website.
Craigslist?
No, the Craig website.
Right,
who is this man? Have you seen this box and all this kind of stuff? And the Great Intelligence went, holy crap! I know that guy. Then it figured it out.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there because there's I like how we have split this up. I'm so glad you did this, Sean, because there's a paradigm shift between these 3 episodes that really have a theme going, and the next 3 episodes that we're going to do, or we got 4 in there. No, we got 3.
3
that have a theme going as well. At least 2 of the 3, and then the last one's a capstone. But I can't wait. Have you guys watched Downtime yet?
Not yet.
Not
I
yet.
can't wait until we're able to review Downtime, because I will warn our listeners now. It is a fan film. The story is very weak. There's a lot of loose threads, but put in the context of what is done here and what it does in the context of this saga of the Great Intelligence, I think it's really kind of a neat little piece that we fit in there, and I'm glad we're doing that. And I'm glad that you'll see a change. We'll see some of the we'll see some holdovers in Downtime from what we've discussed as far as themes and ideas and structure, but we're also going to see a nice little parallel to the future. So that's all I'll say about that. Anything else you guys want to talk about any of these 3?
Okay. So why webs?
Why Yeti?
Yeah.
Well, at least the Yeti at least initially makes sense.
In the Abominable Snowman, because of the location, the Yeti makes
and then,
sense.
so, obviously the Great Intelligence isn't overly creative. He may be smart, but not creative.
maybe I can placate you
Well,
with this.
just the fact that
also-
they brought the one to the museum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
that's
had the control sphere there, so
and
Trevor's awakened it.
Yes.
Right.
I can excuse that. It's the only reason I can see for the web and for the foam. Which
Yeah,
is-
see what you.
the-
I still think
the-
the foam is a very cool
It's
effect.
No,
a
the
neat,
foam is a cool
It's a
effect.
neat effect. I just don't understand what it did and why. Obviously,
I wanna
apparently
equate-
the web
okay.
was just there to
I equate
kidnap or to kill people, even though the Yeti could do that on their own, and to trap explosives so it won't explode.
Okay, I equate the foam and the webbing to the living snow. Is that there are three things that the great intelligence has in its own arsenal that it has somehow the ability to utilize. It ultimately needs to manifest into somebody in order to get the things it needs done or create the robot Yeti, but somehow they are extensions. Those three elements are somehow extensions of the great intelligence in some way. That's the only way I can explain it. Because even the living snow isn't explained well.
Well, that's true.
Because it's
Yeah.
not just snow. They make a point to say that it's living snow.
So it's living foam.
Right.
The
Well,
foam is just another
so I
version
get
of
the impression
snow.
that all three of these things are forms of the same thing and extensions of the great intelligence.
But
Does that make sense?
I don't get the impression that the webs that come in at the guns are extensions.
Well, I think they are, but you got to think of it as not a physical connection, more of a metaphysical connection, because the great intelligence didn't. Nothing came from the astral plane. It had to be.
They had to utilize things.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think those are whatever that substance is, has three forms, and that's what the great intelligence uses. That's the only way that I can kind of rectify, because I thought the same thing. Why web? Other than looks cool enough.
It's a
Science
neat
fiction.
effect, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, if the Yeti was using giant spiders in the sewers, okay, I get it. It makes total
Yeah.
sense. But
And honestly, I didn't think about it. Okay, the Yetis have web guns. All right. until I listened to Toby Hoke's Who's Round. He was talking to Russell T Davies, and Russell brought it up of why the web guns. And it wasn't until then I was like, yeah, why the web guns?
Well, the GI had control over the webbing once it was dispatched.
okay, yeah.
The GI had control over the snow once it was dispatched. The GI had control over the foam once it was dispatched. That's why I say I think whatever it is, it's three different forms of the same substance that the GI can connect to.
maybe it's just white stuff,
Might be.
Maybe.
like sand. It could do sand.
Well,
mixed.
no, I don't think it's a color differentiant. I think whatever is being utilized is the same base structure. It
Base
just is in different
molecules.
forms. Yeah, it's just in different forms. That's the only way that I can
It could take over the
justify
salt
that.
in the salt mine.
All right, anything else that I know I keep saying that, but you keep coming up with very relevant things.
I'm trying to think of anything
More
else.
him than me.
I think that's it. I like how the brig had Lethbridge Stewart's character, while he's grown,
It's still the same.
He's the
isn't
same
it?
guy
Yeah,
the entire
yeah.
time.
In fact,
he's just got new experiences under
that
his belt
impresses
later.
me more that the character can grow, but still adhere to the same principles from the very beginning.
He can grow, but
still
not
have
change.
that same. Yeah, it just watching this just made me even more amazed at Nicholas Courtney. I mean, it's just what a fantastic actor, and I know a lot of it comes from the writers, but just to be able to
He holds it.
personify, he just holds it all together.
Yeah.
In order to personify that character so evenly throughout the course of Doctor Who, I absolutely love it. I love it. So good.
He's great.
Sean, what do we got coming up on
He had
this
a really
schedule?
nice battle scene.
He did have a great
It
battle.
was
scene.
fun to kind of see him
Better
out
than
in
the one in Invasion, I think.
Yeah,
at the end of
it was
Invasion.
fun to see him out in the thick of it as opposed to getting the report that, oh, by the way, everybody's dead.
Well, that's the thing is, as it seems to me, as a colonel, it's more involvement with the troops.
Yeah.
Whereas with as the brig, it's more of just the commands. He's command. That's pretty much all.
Well, he's not going to beam down onto the planet.
Right.
He's too important.
But then he proves later that he can be still one of the guys in the trenches
yeah.
too. So, sorry.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing with speaking of his character, how willing he was to buy into the idea of the TARDIS.
Oh, he didn't
bat an eye.
Yeah.
So there's a craft, and at this point, all the other avenues are blocked. I'm willing to throw men and resources into an attempt to rescue this thing because it might be the only way out of here. But then you look at him later in his career, like the Three Doctors, when he's like, you've transported all of Unit HQ to somewhere else, and it's obviously, Cardiff or whatever the beach is that he names, and the Doctor's like, no, we're on another planet, in another universe, in another astral plane. And he's like, yeah, right. I better call Geneva.
But when they talk about the craft, and he doesn't better, it's not really embellished on that it travels in time, it travels in space. They just kind of say, this is how we got here. It was a craft. We have a way to get everybody out of here.
He tells him space and time.
He does say it, but it's not like...
It's just very matter of fact. He doesn't... Yeah.
That's just it. I think the way that it's presented is the brig doesn't have to think about the physics of the thing. He has to focus on the fact that it's a craft, it's an escape route. There's a linear thought
there's
there.
There's an A to B. I got
there's
nothing
an A
to
to
do
B.
with C.
But when you introduce, that's just it. Later on, when C... It's suddenly thrown. C is thrown at him, and he has no choice but to consider it. Then suddenly he starts to think about it and try to rationalize it. So it does make sense to me that he's still using rational thought in Web of Fear. They've got a craft. Craft gets us out. Now, when you've transported me to another planet, I have to go. Okay, I'm going to default to rational thought. You've brought everything here, and somehow we didn't do what we obviously did.
Do you think?
And had the brig actually gotten to the TARDIS, I think we would have gotten that reaction.
I agree, because now it no longer is it a chance to think
no longer
linearly.
hypothetical.
Now you've thrown me the problem or the solution.
Do you think if Troughton, if his doctor had given the brig the box argument, this is how it works, that the brig would have just taken the cube and thrown it at him?
I don't know. I think it would have made sense to him better than it did Leela.
This still doesn't make sense to me. Oh, all right. Well, next week, you can relax a little bit for Friday Night Who. You don't have to go and search for anything that doesn't exist, because we're doing Matt Smith and the Bells of St. John. Yay. So speaking of evil Whiffy. And then we're continuing our Adversary Archive with the Great Intelligence, Part 2. We will be covering Downtime, which, one more time, is a fan film and very limited production run and may be available on VHS in some locations, but probably not. It's never had a DVD release that we're aware of.
It's one of those things that again, we don't encourage digital downloads of things that aren't commercially available. However, this might be one of the things that's in that gray area that if you find it out there, that might be an option for you. I'm not encouraging it, but because it's clearly not been released for several years, there's no DVD release out there. I don't think you're taking any money out of anybody's mouths at that point, but that's your own discretion. We're not encouraging that somebody does that. There is the option, though, to read, if you can get a hold of a copy of the Virgin Missing Adventures.
Or Missing Adventures.
It's Missing Adventures.
Virgin Missing Adventures.
Called Downtime, which is a novelization of that particular film. So,
and then, so that'll be the big review for next week, along with covering the Great Intelligence's roles in the Bells of St. John and Name of the Doctor.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then, looking just a little bit ahead, we are now into May, so it's our 5th Doctor month. So the next Friday Night Who will be watching 4 to Doomsday. And my screen just got quiet. And then we'll be reviewing that and the 5th Doctor ebook, Tip of the Tongue, on the next show.
Oh, that's the 50th anniversary.
50th anniversary short stories.
Cool.
Back to those. Well, back to that one anyway.
All right. Is there any unfinished business that we need to talk about?
Cool. I think so.
All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this week.
Okay.
Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
we're going this way again. Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
That's how we end it.
I know, but I was like, it was like at the beginning when you were confused. Now I'm confused.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.